Hello. Hi everyone. Welcome back to another plot summary video. My name is Cari. Thank you for being here. Today we are going to be focusing on A Court of Thorns and Roses. Full disclaimer here. Crescent City, if you have come here from watching my plot summary for Crescent City, that series is absolutely nuts. A lot of people in the comments compared it to like Riverdale. It is very much inspired by like reality TV and stuff like that. The story is bonkers in such a fun way. And so making that video, it was very easy to like laugh and make fun of it all, even though like I genuinely had a fun time reading it, even though it was like a mess. ACOTAR is a little bit different because it starts off quite sincere, I think, in that she was writing a fantasy. She wasn't trying to write kind of like the shit show that Crescent City is. This is still gonna be fun, but I think it's gonna be just a little bit different. This is also very inspired by fairy tales, especially Beauty and the Beast. And I'm gonna be real honest with you guys, I liked ACOTAR. The first time, maybe even the second time that I read it, I was kind of new getting back into fantasy. I know that like it's fun to make fun of it, and I know that it does sincerely have problems, but this isn't gonna be a roast. Like, I'm just gonna tell you the plot and you can decide how you feel about it. Thank you again to the artist that lent me their work. They will be linked down below. But before I start, I am going to let my neighbors finish drilling whatever they're drilling into my wall. And in the meantime, I'm going to give you guys a message from our sponsors. This video is brought to you by Squarespace. If you would like to start an online presence, whether that is through a website, a shop, a blog, Squarespace is there to help you with wonderful templates to even create your website, following it up with wonderful analytics, different features like comment sections or adding membership only zones to your website. It has great tools for monetization if you're opening a shop. So if you want to try it out and just see what you can make with their features, you can go right now to squarespace.com for a free trial. And then when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/CariCanRead for 10% off of your first website or domain. All of that information will be down below, and let's get back to the plot. Our story begins in the forest, described as a labyrinth of snow and ice. And our girl Feyre is hunting. Feyre's family is starving. We'll learn more about it in a little bit, and she is the only one in the family who is able to provide for them. But because it's winter, there aren't any animals, so she has to keep going deeper and deeper into the forest, which is obviously a pain because it's winter, but also it's dangerous because she's getting closer and closer to the border between the mortal and the fairy realms. And we know from the get-go that fairies are not good. Feyre, luckily, has never witnessed it, but there have definitely been stories in their town of people being kidnapped, people being killed. She is like, I don't want to go anywhere near that border if I can help it. But she's also like, we finished our last piece of bread yesterday. We're all gonna starve. So let's get to it. She finds a stream and she decides, I'm gonna just sit here because chances are an animal is gonna come and want to drink. And pretty immediately, luckily for her, sees a deer. But that's not all she sees. In the bushes, there are these glowing golden eyes. And she's like, no, I don't like that. What comes out of the bush is a wolf, which is scary, but scarier that the wolf is like 10 times the size of what a wolf should be. And immediately Feyre is like, fairy, fairy, fairy. She's in a position where it's like, the only thing I can do is try to kill it or it kills me. Luckily for her, she has some ash wood arrows, and ash is one of the things that can hurt fairies. She doesn't even hesitate. She just like gets ready, shoots the wolf twice just to make sure, once in the eyeball, I think, and the wolf dies. And it doesn't transform. She kind of was like, if it's a fairy, it would go back to its original form, right? So when it doesn't transform, she's like, okay, that was just a weird ass wolf. Gotcha. And she also kills the deer. Because she's by herself, she can't bring two giant animals all the way through the woods back to her home. So she ends up taking the full deer and then just skinning the wolf because she figures, I can sell its fur at the market or something like that and try and make some money for my family. And she does feel remorse for killing especially the wolf because it was like such a beautiful creature. But as she said, it is the forest. and it is winter. Feyre gets home, and this is where we get some insight into her family. And on the one hand, the fan art for her sisters contains spoilers, like every single one that I could find, but also I feel like these are very accurate representations of them. So we meet her sisters, Nesta and Elaine, and then she has her father. Her father used to be a merchant. They used to be like very well off. He got kind of wrapped up, bad luck, scam, etc., and he lost everything. So now they're living in poverty because he also can't get any work because there were debt collectors that came and brutally assaulted him, and now his leg is like permanently damaged, and so he can barely walk. He's just talked about with a lot of pity, but also just a lot of hate, because his daughters are like, you were supposed to take care of us, right? He's a complicated figure, the dad. And Nesta and Elaine, I wouldn't call them like evil stepsister-esque, but they're definitely like the older sisters, and they're very used to living kind of the yuppie life. So they don't know how to do anything, and they don't want to learn, and they just figure that Feyre's good at it, so like she can do it. Why should we go hunting when Feyre's better, kind of thing. It wasn't that Elaine was cruel. She wasn't like Nesta, who had been born with a sneer on her face. Elaine just sometimes didn't grasp things. It wasn't meanness that kept her from offering to help. It simply never occurred to her that she might be capable of getting her hands dirty. Elaine is kind of like aloof, but Nesta's like straight up just a pill. She's just mean. When Feyre comes home, she just had been hunting all day, and Nesta's first reaction, first of all, they like didn't even notice she was really gone. They don't seem worried, but Nesta's first reaction is like, ew, you stink. And of course, for Feyre to take a bath, she needs hot water, but there's no firewood to warm the water because Nesta didn't want to go chop firewood because it makes her hands hard. We also learn that their mother wasn't the greatest either. She seemed to really love their father, but she just really loved partying and her friends. She wasn't really a loving, present mother. When she passed away, she died of some illness. When Feyre was 8 years old, she calls Feyre, the youngest daughter, to her deathbed and is like, Feyre, I need you to make me a promise. I need you, the sisters, to stay together. Like, that's your job, is to stay with the sisters and protect them. And in this world, promises are like laws. So Feyre, even though she very well could just like leave the cottage because she actually has like skills she could use in the world to support herself, she is stuck there caring for the family. The next day, the sisters head to town to sell the wolf fur. And to his credit, the dad, when he saw the wolf fur, he was kind of like, that was too much of a risk. Like, he clearly does care about Feyre, but like, according to Feyre, it's not enough, you know? They're heading into town and they run into these people called Children of the Blessed, who aren't very important in this book, but maybe you should pay attention to them. I honestly forget. They're humans, but they're like Fae obsessed. They're kind of these cult members, and they want to return to the time when Fae ruled humans. And I'll give you another little quote here for some history. Once, long ago, and for millennia before that, we had been slaves to the high Fae overlords. Once we had rebelled. The war had been so bloody, so destructive, that it took 6 mortal queens crafting the treaty for the slaughter to cease on both sides, and for the wall to be constructed. So yeah, if you look at a map of the world, it is very clearly the United Kingdom and Ireland, and like maybe a bit of France. Think of it as Ireland, Fae, Scotland, and most of England and Wales, Fae. And then like the bottom bits of England would be mortal, and then France is mortal. Does that make sense? So they are living kind of at the southern tip of England. Right, but they live right at the border. But they're still really scared of the Fae, so everybody wears a little bit of iron on them. The mortals are still living in fear. Nothing really happens when they go to the village. She does manage to sell the wolf hide to this nice lady. We also get semi-introduced to Isaac, which is basically Feyre's booty call. There is like no love between them, but you know, they're late teens, gotta do what you gotta do. I think he has just been arranged in a marriage, and so this is kind of them saying goodbye. They kind of see each other in the market and they're just like, Isaac isn't here often, but seems like an okay dude. Now we're back at the house, and because Feyre made like a little bit of extra money from the wolf stuff, she gave her sisters money and they got to like shop or whatever, so they're kind of in a good mood. So Nesta even goes and chops wood. It's like domestic bliss for a second in the cottage. That is until their door is broken down and a giant growling shape is standing there. So this thing is described as having, and I forget this. Every time I read it, I forget it until I read this singular sentence. But this is how the beast looks, all right? The size of a horse, the body of a cat, the head of a wolf, but with antlers. How did it get through the door? And this beast is pissed. Feyre, without even thinking, has like a little knife and like jumps in front of her family and is like, rah! And this thing is screaming like, you murderer! Like he's really upset. And Feyre is like, okay, this thing can talk. It is Fae. We are in deep shit. If it, like, obviously, but he just keeps screaming like, you murderers, you evil people, whatever. And Feyre is like, we didn't kill anyone, but let me try and kill you. And she like lunges with her little knife and tries to kill the beast. Obviously the beast stops her, but key point, he doesn't kill her. He very easily could have just been like shwamp, but he didn't. So it means he wants to talk. So Feyre finally is like, okay, knife didn't work. Let's have a chat. Who did I kill? And the beast is like, the wolf. And she's like, oh, okay, I did do that. To her credit, Feyre owns up to it pretty much immediately. And she's like, why was that a big deal? And the beast is like, that wasn't a wolf. That was my friend. It was a fae. And she's like, well, I obviously didn't know that or else I wouldn't have killed it. Duh. But like, oops, I sold his skin today at the market. So like, what are we gonna do here? Like, what's the next step? And the beast is like, didn't y'all read the treaty? Apparently in that peace treaty that we talked about that like separated the mortals and the Fae realms, right? In that treaty, there is a clause in which if a human attacks a Fae unprovoked, because remember, the wolf was just there. He didn't like lunge at her or anything. She killed him even before he really saw her. If a human kills a Fae unprovoked, it's like an eye for an eye kind of thing. So the Fae gets to take the human's life. And Feyre is just kind of like, all right, just kill me outside, would ya? Like, let's not get the cottage dirty. And the beast kind of laughs at her and is like, for having the nerve to request where I slaughter you, I'll let you in on a secret, human. Prythian, which is the Fae realm, Prythian must claim your life in some way for the life you took from it. So as representative of the immortal realm, I can either gut you like swine, or you can cross the wall and live out the remainder of your days in Prythian. And Feyre is like, let me think about that for a second. Let me make this clear for you, girl. You can either come live at my house in Prythian, offer your life for the wolves in that way, or you can walk outside right now and be shredded to ribbons. Your choice. Feyre chooses the not being shredded to ribbons option, and the beast is like, okay, cool, let's go. Feyre's like, oh, okay. And she basically gives them a quick rundown of how to survive. She's like, this is how you divvy up the deer meat, and this is how you do one of these things. And like, also Nesta, the guy that you're dating is like totally abusive, so don't marry him because just don't. And then she's just gone. Like the beast just puts her on a horse and he walks alongside, and here our story begins. So obviously Feyre is planning on making a run for it. She does not plan on living in Prythian. She knows that if she does live there, the Fae will kill her. Like, maybe not this beast one right away, but like, Fae are really tricky. They're always really playful with their words. So the beast said that she had to live in Prythian, but he didn't say how. So she's like, I'm gonna become like some slave, or I'm gonna like live for eternity in a dungeon. So she's like, I'm gonna run for it. But if she ran immediately, she knew that the beast would just turn around and kill her family. So she's like, all right, let's get away from the cottage and then I'll make my big break. In the meantime, she is on the horse and she decides maybe she can get some information out of him. So she just starts asking the beast all these questions like,
so what's your power? What's your name? Where are we going?
And he just like does some weird magic shit and knocks her out and makes her unconscious for like a while. She wakes up and all of a sudden it's spring. And remember, it was winter when she went to sleep. So she's like, he kept me asleep for months. No, it's not that bad. Because they crossed into the fairy realm, they entered one of the courts. And it will be described later, but all of the courts have like a different season or, something like that. So they must have crossed into the spring court because all of a sudden it's like lovely flowers and grassy fields. She like comes to terms with the fact that she wasn't asleep for months, and so she's feeling okay. But then she checks that while she was asleep, he stole the knife that she had hidden away, and she's kind of like, yuck, he touched me in my sleep and I now don't have a weapon, so like, fuck this. They go to a really beautiful manor house that has buttery daffodils and roses everywhere. This is where we learn Feyre's thing. Feyre likes to paint. Feyre's obsessed with colors. She is like itching to get her hands on some paint so that she can paint this house. Anyway, they go into the house and there is like a table filled with food, and Feyre is like, oh yeah. But before she can like dig in and forget herself, the beast sits down at the table with a groan, and in a snap, in a flash of white light, he becomes a golden-haired man. The beast was not a man, not a lesser fairy. He was one of the high fae, their ruling nobility, beautiful, lethal, and merciless. Okay, weirder still, he has a mask on. I did not do this is a major spoiler, but I didn't put his mask on because it's just disrespectful to the beautiful fan art. But just picture this man with a giant gold mask with like emerald leaves and stuff, so pretty much obscuring almost all of his face, right? She is just staring at him in silence. Meanwhile, he pops open a bottle of wine and takes a big old gulp as if he needed it. And so even though just a second ago, Feyre was like freaking out over how much food there was and she was really excited, again, she's like, Feyre, you're in the fairy realms. She refuses to eat because you're not supposed to take food from fairies, right? Our like beastie boy says that it's okay, but she's kind of like, no, I'd really rather starve. It's okay. And he's like, the gates are open to you, by the way. Like, you aren't our prisoner. You can leave and live anywhere in Prithian that you want to. And that sounds nice, like, oh, yay, I'm free to roam. But Feyre's like, no matter where I go, fairies are going to want to, like, eat me. So why no? Like, so then another fairy enters and he doesn't notice Feyre and he just walks straight over to Beastie Boy and he's like, what happened to Andress? And Andress was the name of their friend who was the wolf who was killed. So he is this cute little redheaded fairy and he's basically like, a human girl killed Andress? Are you serious? And he has one eye that's like golden and magical and it like swivels around kind of like Mad Eye Moody. It kind of has a mind of its own, so it must have detected Feyre. And so all of a sudden he whips around and he's like, this girl killed Andress? Like, of all human girls, like, this girl? Come on. And the Beastie Boy calls a servant over and is like, can you just take her and bathe her, please? Like, get her out of here. As she's leaving, she hears the fairy whose name is Lucian. She overhears Lucian say, dump the girl somewhere, kill her, I don't care. She's nothing but a burden here. She'd sooner put a knife in your back than talk to you or any of us. And then Beastie Boy says, no, not until we know for certain that there's no other way will we make a move. And as for the girl, she stays unharmed. Her life in that hovel was hell enough. And Feyre's kind of like, yay, I'm gonna be unharmed, but also like, ouch, overhearing someone like shit talk your shitty house doesn't feel good. After Feyre doesn't stink anymore, she goes back down to the dining room where we learn two things. Beastie Boy's name is Tamlin, and also he is probably hundreds of years old. Anyway, Lucian is also there because Lucian is always there. King of the third wheel. If I say Tamlin is around, assume Lucian is somewhere nearby. And this is where we get big Beauty and the Beast vibes. Feyre sits down, they give her some food, and they watched me too closely to be casual. Tamlin straightened a bit and said, you look better than before. Was that a compliment? I could have sworn Lucian gave Tamlin an encouraging nod. And your hair is clean? That sweet talk gets him nowhere because Tamlin ends up explaining to her, like, listen, you're free to go wherever you want to. You don't need to earn your keep. Like, I'm not going to make you work in the kitchens or something. Like, just live in my house. I don't give a shit what you do. And Feyre is like, if you don't care, then can I just go home? Like, doesn't that make sense? And she's like, my family is going to die without me. And Tamlin is like, do you think I'm that horrible that I would leave your family who so clearly depend on you without any resources. He's like, they're taken care of. And Feyre is like, well, fairies can't lie. But she's also pissed. She's like, why didn't you tell me earlier? Like, I've spent the entire day scared that my family is dying currently. And he's like, would you have believed me? Like, do you even believe me now? And Feyre's just kind of like, wah, 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 wah. Like I said, Feyre is just kind of losing her mind. She assumes she's going to die any second. So she just decides to like get up from the table and run as if that would work. Tamlin immediately uses his magic or something to like sit her back in the chair basically. And he's like, listen, girlie, I told you your family's taken care of. If you cross the wall, that ends. You will die and your family won't get all of the stuff that I have given them so that they can live comfortably. So now she's stuck because her whole life purpose is to take care of her family, but her family is taken care of only as long as she stays away from them. And she's just like, this logic, it's not clicking. It's not clicking for her. So the only thing she can do is like sit there and eat. So she does that. As if the meal isn't already awkward enough, Lucien chimes in. I actually really love Lucien as a character. Just his actions are described. Like he's always sitting there, leaning in, just being like, watching everything go down. So Lucien's a fun character, I think. But anyway, Lucien pipes in and he's like, aren't you happy to be sitting with two hot fairies? Like, obviously, Fae are super attractive. So he's like, isn't this like a human dream, you know? Like two nice guys like us? He's like, do you have some human boy back home? And that is such a leading question. Oh my God. So she's like, well, I was close with this one guy. And Tamlin and Lucien kind of look at each other. And Tamlin's like, did you love him? Feyre says no. The boys share another weird-ass look, and through clenched teeth, Tamlin says, and do you love anyone else? And Feyre just starts laughing at them because this is so weird, and she's like, is that what you guys want to know about me? Like, you kidnapped me and you just want to know about my love life? Like, are you guys cool? And so she just gets up and leaves, but as she's leaving, she can hear Lucien say something, and then she just hears Tamlin be like, shut up, and he cackles. So that went well for all parties involved. The next morning, we meet Alice, who is Feyre's lady-in-waiting. Alice seems to be relatively chill because Feyre set up a big old booby trap so that if someone were to open her door while she was asleep, it would like make a big noise and she would wake up. So she was hoping to wake up before anybody else so that she could disarm the trap. But Alice is an early bird, and Alice walks in and is like attacked by this thing. And she is just like, girl, did you think that was gonna stop a fairy? Like, what are you? Calm down. But she's also like, at least you've got some fight in you. Like, I appreciate that you're a firecracker. Because Feyre has like nothing to do, she just wanders around the house. She ends up seeing art on the walls, which she likes because she's a painter. And so she kind of stops and looks. And all of a sudden she just hears someone go, you! And it's Tamlin, the boy with 0 person skills. Tamlin kind of recovers and he's like, would you like a tour of the house? And Feyre's just like, no. And then they get into one of their little fighting matches. They just start vaguely yelling at each other about like human versus fae stuff when it is revealed that something is wrong with the magic in Prythian right now. That is why they, as well as Alice, by the way, everybody at the spring court is wearing masks 24/7. It's not just like a bad fashion choice. There was like some weird surge of magic. They were having a party. The magic messed up and now they're like cursed to wear the masks all the time. Lucien's, by the way, is in the shape of a fox. I would just like you to know whenever he's speaking, he is speaking through a fox mask, which I love. But yeah, Tamlin's basically like, there is some kind of sickness, some kind of blight that is spreading throughout Prythian. And so like, I've got shit to deal with. Can you like not be an annoying human? I know that I brought you here against your will, but can you like try to be nice? And that is why his buddy Andrus was shaped like a wolf and was in the mortal realm, is because they were hoping that maybe there might be a cure or something in the mortal realm. And this sickness has been going on for 50 years. And then Tamlin very abruptly is just like, see you at dinner, and leaves. okay? Like, again, no people skills, but at least we got some information from him. Dinner is very boring. Feyre steals a knife, very slickly slides it up her sleeve. And then she just like starts asking weird questions about the Fae. And Tamlin is like, didn't your mom tell you about us? Like, apparently moms are supposed to tell their children about what to look out for the Fae. I don't know. He brings up her mom, basically. And she's like, I don't know. My mom died when I was 8. And he actually seems like he's not awkward in this. He is like just very sincerely like, oh, I'm actually really sorry to hear that, like, my bad. But Feyre's just like, I don't give a shit, and leaves. So they have had like not a one conversation that has ended well in any way, shape, or form so far. Feyre is still really set on escaping now that she has stolen her knife, and she figures her best bet is to buddy up with Lucien, because he's like a dick, but he makes jokes. Like, he's very much still like, it'll just be easier if we just kill her, Tamlin, like, can we please just kill Feyre? But at least he like giggles and stuff, so he seems like he could be swayed, right? She hears that Lucien is going to be at the stables, and so she decides that she's gonna be at the stables too. But she is intercepted by Tamlin, who is like, hey, how about that tour? Do you want to see the gardens? And Feyre is like, honestly, like, I would really like to be alone today, Tamlin. And he's like, okay, and leaves. Feyre heads to the stables to find Lucien, and yep, he is there getting ready to go out into the forest to do his like guard duty, whatever. For some reason, Lucien just straight up invites her to go on patrol with him, and she is like, what a great idea, sure, yes. But then as they are riding their horses, Lucien is like, so you're here to persuade me to go behind Tamlin's back and help you get free? And Feyre's like, you piece of shit, read my mind. So Lucien is like, I admire your balls, Feyre, I really do. Or maybe it's stupidity, but since Tam won't gut you, which was my first choice, you're stuck here. Unless you want to rough it on your own in Prythian, which, he looked me up and down, I'd advise against. But Lucien isn't all that smooth, let me tell you. As they are chatting, he lets it slip that there is a someone behind the blight. The sickness that Tamlin talked about with the magic being all funky, he mentions a mysterious her. Lucien quickly changes the subject, but Feyre is like, ooh, this boy's got loose lips. So she just keeps peppering him with questions. She's like, I'm gonna get something out of him. He's gonna slip again.
How old are you? Where are you from? Is there by any chance a fae that I can capture and it has to tell me the truth no matter what I ask?
Because she heard about that in like a fairy tale. And Lucien is like, oh, you mean the Suriel? The Suriel. And he's like, yeah, I wouldn't recommend trying to catch one of those because it would kill you. But all Feyre hears is like, there must be one nearby if he's concerned. So thank you for that juicy bit of information, Lucien. And she's about to like start peppering him again when Lucien is just like, don't move. The hair on the back of her neck stands up like something is very wrong. Don't react, Lucien said, forcing his gaze ahead too. No matter what you feel or see, don't react. Don't look. Just stare ahead. I might have wondered if this was some kind of horrible joke, but Lucien's face had gone so very, very pale. So it turns out they encounter something called the Bogue. I'm going to call it the Bogue. I apologize. It's probably the Bog. And it is some kind of creature that can only hurt you if you acknowledge its existence. It like creeps up to her and it's like, Feyre, look at me. And this thing is nearly impossible to kill, but it can kill you. Oh, baby. Somehow they end up getting away from it. It kind of gives up on them. And they end their little patrol on, dare I say, friendly terms. And also, just to be clear, the reason she asked about the Suriel is because she is certain that there is some kind of loophole in this treaty where she can find her way back home. She's, always looking for a loophole, smart cookie Feyre. But the good vibes, by the way, are kind of shattered when they walk into the dining room together and Tamlin is like, oh, you wanted to be alone today. And Lucien looks hella guilty. Feyre's like, oh, rats. But then Lucien is like, we saw a Bogue. And Tamlin replies with, lethal calm. Where is it? And he just like immediately goes out and hunts it. And Feyre's like, didn't you say that thing is like impossible to kill and it will absolutely kill you? And Lucien is like, you are talking about Tamlin. Tammy can kill anything. Like, don't worry about him. So he goes out like the warrior beastie man that he is to go kill that nasty bogue. So go Tammy. Later that night, Tamlin still isn't back home, and Feyre finds herself, of all things, worrying about Tamlin. She's sitting in her bedroom, like looking out her window, looking at the forest, and she's like, what? Get yourself together, girl. Like, why do you care about this guy who kidnapped you? And as she's looking at the trees, she sees someone come out of it, but it's not Tamlin. Who is it? Danica. No, I'm kidding. It's her dad. Yeah, it's her dad. Feyre doesn't even think. She runs out of the house and she just sprints to the forest line towards her father. And all of a sudden something grabs her from behind and it's Tammy. And he's like, where are you going? Normally Feyre is pretty smart, but she basically saw her dad and just like forgot the fact that there are many things in the forest that probably want to kill her. That thing that looked like her father, it was another fairy just trying to like lure her into the forest, right? Tamlin is basically just like, girl, you are dumb. Like, at least run away in the daytime. And why do you want to go back to that life anyway? Like, what is so great about where you were? And Feyre tells him about the promise that she made to her mother. And Tamlin is like, did you not hear me when I said that I took care of them? Like, they're good. The fact that you are here means that you are taking care of them. They're fine. Trust me. And that's when it kind of hits her that she's like, I'm released from my vow. Like, I'm finally free. And she like doesn't know how to handle that because for the past 11 years, her entire life has revolved around that promise. And so she's kind of like, let me process that. But returning to the whole, there are deadly things in the forest trying to kill her thing, she's like, where are the other guards, by the way? And Tamlin is like, we don't need other guards while I'm here. But he also says something kind of cryptic about how he's not supposed to be in charge. He trained to be a warrior. So he shows a little bit of vulnerability, tells us a little bit about himself. He doesn't really want this gig that he has, basically. But Feyre is kind of like, but is the forest always deadly? Like, this seems like kind of a shitty job. Like, you have to just keep killing things? Like, what's up? And he basically explains that because of the blight, the magic is weakening. And so all of the wards that would keep the court safe are weak too. And so things keep slipping in and out. And he says, things are different now. It's not safe to travel alone at night. And Feyre asks, what else is different now? She asks, trailing him up the marble front steps. He didn't stop this time. Didn't even look over his shoulder to see me when he said, everything. And then we get a little montage of Tamlin being moody and distant and going off to fight the Bogue. And Feyre is starting to pity him because he seems very lonely and sad and he's in a position he didn't want. And she, quote, wasn't sure why it bothered her so much. And so, like I said, this is really where we just get probably like hundreds of pages, I'm gonna say, of Tamlin being sad and like begrudgingly doing his job. He just doesn't really want to be there. He's very lonely. It's just him because he's the most powerful, so he does everything. Poor Tammy, right? So that night, Feyre has a pretty bad nightmare and she wakes up and she's shaking and she's just like, screw this. I can't fall back asleep. Why don't I just wander around the house? As she's wandering around the house, she is making kind of like a map of all the exits and like all the windows and stuff because she's still like pretty set on escaping. And this is where we learn something important about Feyre. Because of everything that happened with her family when she was so young, she actually never had proper schooling, and so she can't read or write. And so as she's making this map, it's like in a very particular way that like she understands, but is clearly not written by someone who knows how to properly read and write. And as she is walking around making this map, she stumbles upon Tamlin, who has just come in, and he seems very like disoriented, and upon further inspection he's injured and bleeding, and it turns out that he was out again still trying to kill this Bogue thing. So she walks up to him and is like, hey, did you manage to kill that thing? And he's like, yeah, but he's still not really like all there. And he kind of looks at what's in her hand and he just suddenly is like, you can't write, can you? And Feyre immediately is like ready for some kind of nasty comment, you know, how he called her house a hovel and all this stuff. But it turns out he's like, that must be why you're so good at other things. And Feyre is kind of like, was that a compliment? Like, I think that was his first nice-ish compliment. Damn. Okay, Tamlin, keep it going. Because he scored a bonus point with her. She's like, let me take you to the infirmary, get you cleaned up. And of course they do have like a nice moment for once. This is like the one time they haven't yelled at each other. The next morning, Feyre is heading down to breakfast when she hears the boys arguing. Lucien is like, what are you doing? And Tamlin is like, what are you doing? And Lucien says, there isn't much time and you're just sulking and glowering. You're not even trying to fake it anymore. Tamlin suddenly like whirls around and he's like, it was a mistake from the start. I won't follow his footsteps. I won't be that sort of person. So like, back off. So Lucien storms out and kind of brushes past Feyre and is like, you hang out with Tamlin today. I don't want to play with you. They're such babies. Like, these people are supposed to be hundreds of years old. They're children. Ugh. Feyre and Tamlin hang out today. Tamlin compliments her wound binding skills. He just keeps going with the compliments now. He's got it down. And then he also kind of has this realization that he's like, no one's ever taken care of you before, have they? Since you were 8 years old, like, you've had to take care of your family. Like, nobody really cared for you, right? And Tamlin gets very saddened by that. It's quite sweet. And that is when Tamlin leads her to the manor's study. He knows that like she wants to learn to read and write, but he just kind of like leaves her to it. I don't know if like he doesn't want to embarrass her or what, but anyway, she just sits in the room trying to read, which is really difficult. She just kind of opens a book and tries to make sounds. And eventually, like, the main goal, Feyre wants to be able to write a letter to her family. But as she's in the study, she finds a mural, and this mural is actually depicting kind of the entire history of Prythian and the mortal realms. There's this cauldron that is pouring gold over the world and it's beautiful. Then there's a war with the humans. And then we get kind of a better idea of how the fairy world is split up. So she is in the spring court, but there is also the summer, autumn, and winter court. There's also the dawn, the day, and the night court. Right? She goes back to her study desk and all of a sudden Tamlin just kind of pops out of nowhere and is like, oh, I would like to help you learn how to write. And for some reason, she doesn't take kindly to this and she's kind of like, I don't need your help, blah, blah, blah. And Tamlin is like, whoa, buddy, I wasn't trying to make fun of your shortcomings. And the fact that he called the fact that she can't read and write a shortcoming, she gets so pissed and she storms off. And so all the good stuff that Tamlin did for the past couple days, screwed it up with just one word. And now if you are like, damn, is there never going to be any action in this book? Don't you worry. It starts to heat up right now. So Feyre, fuming, upset, she decides, I am getting out of here. She hasn't given up, right? And so remember her whole thing talking to Lucien about the Suriel and how she was going to find a loophole to this treaty and get home. So she decides to go back to Lucien because she's like, he's gonna slip up again, right? And she just straight up asks him, how would one catch one? You know that thing we were talking about that you said would kill me? How would one go about getting one? And Lucien tells her very specific details like, go get a chicken, go do this, and that is how you will set a trap for the Suriel. I'm not going to stretch this out because this happens in literally like one page. Feyre catches it. Hoo-ha, she's a really good hunter. This is a theme throughout the book. She's actually really good at hunting. And so she managed to catch a Suriel. She asks the most important question, which is like, how do I go home? The Suriel is like, you can't go home, quote, not unless you seek to be killed and your family with you. You must remain here. And then the Suriel drops a knowledge bomb. Tamlin isn't just high fae who like lives in a manor house, so like he has servants and whatever, and he's kind of like in charge of protecting the land. He is a high lord, of which there are only 7. So the spring court, summer, winter, autumn. He is the guy. One of the top 7 most powerful beings on earth. And so Feyre's kind of like, ooh, he didn't mention that one. So she's kind of like, oh, damn. And then Feyre is nice enough to ask about what they can do about the blight, because this isn't a problem that's going to stay in Prythian. She's pretty sure that whatever this magic sickness is, it's going to spread to the human realm. And the Suriel says, stay with the High Lord, human. That's all you can do. You will be safe. Do not interfere. Do not go looking for answers after today, or you will be devoured by the shadow of Prythian. He will shield you from it, so stay close to him and all will be right. So that's like bad news for Feyre, who is trying everything in her power to get away from Tamlin, the High Lord. But the Suriel can't lie. So she's kind of like, well, okay, I guess I'm stuck with you. Then the Suriel tells her a little bit more about the Blight, and he mentions that the neighboring kingdom of Highburn, which is like on the map, it looks like Ireland, right? That is also Fae lands, and that king is pretty sick of the treaty, and he wants to overthrow the humans and like wants the Fae to be in charge again. And he sent spies over to Prythian or something like that. 50 years ago, one of his spies disobeyed, and this sounds like it's going to be a really important story. But then the Suriel just starts freaking out. He's like, we're not alone. You have to untie me. I'm going to die. You have to run. Blah, blah, blah. Turns out something called the Naga come out, and these are just like evil beings, right? And there are 4 of them, and they don't discriminate. They aren't just going to attack Feyre. They're definitely going to attack the Suriel, who is tied up in Feyre's trap still. Feyre does a pretty selfless thing, and she wastes valuable time in which she could be running away, and she actually uses her arrow to like cut the Suriel free of its trap. The Suriel bounces, it's gone, zoomies. So now Feyre has to fight off 4 Naga all by herself. She fights a really good fight, but she's just overpowered, and she is pretty much seconds from death when Beastie Boy comes in full beast mode, and he, needless to say, rips them to shreds. Saved Feyre's life. That's pretty nice. And as they walk home, we get a sense again of like, not only is Tamlin like a really sad person, but he's like really, seems like he's carrying a lot of shame. Feyre notices that he looks guilty and shameful, and it seems like he's really embarrassed that his magic is weakening so that he can't protect people like he should. Like, he's a warrior, so he always wants to be defending, and his magic can't do that anymore. And so Feyre notices that, like, man, this guy carries like the weight of the world on his shoulders. He feels really bad. And so they don't really talk, but they part on peaceful terms, I would say, because he did just save her life, right? After a bubble bath and hot chocolate, Feyre goes down and joins the boys for dinner. She very subtly lets Lucien know that she didn't tell Tamlin that Lucien is the one who taught her how to catch the Suriel, because she realizes, like, he set her up. Like, again, Lucien is a dick, and he still thinks life would be easier if Feyre was dead. And so he told her all of that, knowing that she would go try and get it, right? But she's not going to snitch. And so as a subtle thank you, he says, well, you still look lovely regardless of your hell-sent afternoon. And Feyre laughs and is like, I thought fairies couldn't lie, because she doesn't think that she looks lovely. And Lucien is like, we can lie. And Feyre's like, what about iron? Can you touch iron? And Lucien is like, yeah, it doesn't do shit to us. What are you talking about? And Tamlin cuts in and he's like, even though Lucien revealed some of our closely guarded secrets, we never willingly lied to you. So Lucien once again has said too much, so he excuses himself from the table before he continues, and Tamlin starts off strong. He's asking Feyre how she's feeling. She just nearly died. Then he brings up the fact again that he could help Feyre write to her family, and once again she gets really angry. She's just like really, she's got a lot of pride, maybe, I don't know, this part's a little, you know, it's Sarah J Maas, she's got motivations. She basically is like, I don't want your pity, and Tamlin says, well, do you want my friendship? Feyre's like, yeah, Fae and mortals can't be friends, like what are you talking about, my dude? Tamlin is like, but what about all the Fae that fought on the human side of the war? In the war, humans versus Fae, do you think the humans stood a single chance all by themselves? Like, they had Fae on their side fighting for them. And Feyre's like, oh, I didn't know that. And to really run that point home, that not all Fae are bad, right? Tamlin elaborates on what he did for Feyre's family. For what it's worth, Tamlin said, your family knows you're safe. They have no memory of the beast bursting into their cottage, and think a long-lost, very wealthy aunt called you away to aid her on her deathbed. They know you're alive and fed and cared for, but they also know that there have been rumors of a threat in Prythian. They're prepared to run should any warning signs of the wall faltering occur, which is exactly what Feyre wanted to write them about. She wanted to warn them to be ready to run. And Tamlin already did that, and like gave her a cover story. The friendship is bubbling away. Feyre is suddenly warming up to Tam Tam. And she decides, all right, let's test this friendship. I would like something, because Tamlin is always like, just let me know, you know? And Feyre is like, can I have paint? She's like, I like to paint. And Tamlin is like, oh, my moment. Yes, I will get you paint. I will get you canvas. I will get you paper. I will get you everything that you want. What do you want? Do you want a room to paint in? We can open the gallery. I can have it cleaned. And he's like super excited to like be able to provide for her, basically. He smiled at me broadly and without restraint or hesitation. Isaac never smiled at me like that. Isaac had never made my breath catch just a little bit. Damn. Sorry, Isaac. Like, Isaac is only in this book to be like lightly roasted by Tamlin. But the cute moment is over. Feyre goes to bed and wakes up from a nightmare. And that is when she realizes she hears a bunch of stuff happening in the house. So she runs down and she sees Tamlin, Lucien, and a bunch of other people running into kind of the main part of the house. And Tamlin is carrying this like broken lump of a fairy, like this poor blue-skinned fairy, and he's screaming. Everybody is clearly like, something is very, very wrong. Basically what she gathers is that this fairy that Tamlin is holding was dumped on the border of their lands, and the fairy just keeps screaming like, she took my wings, she took my wings. And when you look at his back, where his wings should be, it's like ripped and nasty, and like bones and guts and stuff are like coming out of his back, and he's just not healing. Like, Fae are supposed to heal quite fast, but he's losing so much blood that they're like, we don't know what to do. Lucien is no help. He takes one look at the fairy and is like throwing up. Basically, it's Feyre and Tamlin that are trying to help this fairy kind of in his last moments. Feyre actually like grabs the Fae's hand and tries to calm him down, and she's like, don't worry, you know, you're gonna get your wings back, I promise, it's all gonna be okay. And eventually she does get the Fae to kind of be like, okay, I'm gonna get my wings back, okay, and he kind of takes his last breath. So of course after that, Tamlin asks her why, you know, if she hates the Fae so much, why did you help this absolute stranger, Fae? And she says, because I wouldn't want to die alone, because I'd want someone to hold my hand until the end, and a while after that. That's something everyone deserves, human or fairy. I regret what I did to Andrus, I said, the words so strangled they were no more than a whisper. I regret that there was such hate in my heart. I wish I could undo it, and I'm sorry. Tamlin just kind of nods, picks up the dead fairy, and walks out to bury him. And it's very clear that like he wants to do this alone, because again, he's just so ashamed. He takes every death as a, you know, mark of his incompetence. The next day, to get us out of the doom and gloom, Tamlin decides that they are going to go for a little picnic. Tamlin, Lucien, and Feyre. Once again, Lucien is like definition of third wheel. Okay, they head out to this lake, and apparently it's like a lake of starlight. It's some kind of magical lake. It looks beautiful. It's great. It's amazing, whatever. And everybody, the grass in the meadow is the same green as Tamlin's eyes. And she never noticed there are flecks of amber in it. You know shit's going down when you start noticing the color of somebody's eyes. So buckle up, everybody. But she lets it slip in conversation that she knows that Tamlin is the High Lord. Tamlin is like, oh, so the Suriel didn't tell you anything important, right? Because when he killed the Naga, he was asking like, hey, you know, did you get any info from the Suriel? And she's like, nah, nothing. So he's kind of like teasing her like, oh, I thought he didn't tell you anything. And Feyre says, he also said that you liked being brushed, and if I'm a clever girl, I might train you with treats. And Tamlin tipped his head to the sky and roared with laughter. And Lucien calls from his blanket way over there. He's like, I might die of surprise. You made a joke, Feyre. Then all of a sudden, Tamlin is like, come on. And they run to the lake, and he's like, we're gonna go swimming. Lucien hangs back, and so Feyre is like, is he okay? Like he's kind of, you know, teasing along with them, but he seems kind of distant. And that's when we learn Lucien's story. Lucien is actually the son of the High Lord of the Autumn Court, and apparently the people of the Autumn Court are really vicious. Lucien fell in love with a girl who was not in the correct social rank, and he wouldn't give her up, basically, and his father and brothers executed her in front of him. Like, I think they beheaded her. Kind of seeing that fairy last night, like being so ripped up and tortured, really kind of put him in a dark place. So that's why he came along. So after being like, yeah, my friend's true love got beheaded in front of him, he's like, now let's go swimming. They basically like strip down and jump in the lake, and it's magical. Basically, they just spend the whole time swimming in their undies, and Feyre tells Tamlin the entire story of her childhood. Also, speaking of Lucien, as they are walking home, she also kind of apologizes to Lucien about his friend Andrus. So she's like, hey, by the way, like, I get why you wanted to kill me, like why you sent me to the Suriel. I get it. No hard feelings, right? And Lucien is like, okay, well, you apologized, so I have an apology too. I heard you scream. Like when the Naga came out, he's like, I heard you scream, and I hesitated for a second. Like, I could have run to you, but I hesitated. And technically that was breaking his promise, right? Because he promised Tamlin that she would remain unharmed. And so he's like, since I broke my promise, I'm gonna give you a gift. He hands her her own weapon. She now has a sword. This is when we are thrown back into the Beauty and the Beast thing, where Tamlin has finally gotten the gallery cleaned up. So remember when Feyre asked him for paint, and he was like, yes, I'm giving you all the paint in the world, and we have like a personal gallery in this house, and I'm gonna clean it up for you. He finally cleaned it up, and it's ready. And so he brings Feyre to the gallery.
You like it?
It's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Days melt into weeks. There's not much to do. And then just one day, as it does, she has a bad day. She just kind of thinks about her family and how they're probably forgetting her. She just is really down, and it's very visible. So she kind of walks out to the rose garden to kind of just have a moment, and Tamlin follows her out. Feyre basically explains to Tamlin that she feels guilty for living the life that she's living right now, like the fact that she is living comfortably in this beautiful manner, but then she also feels bad for feeling bad, you know, because Tamlin and his whole court are suffering from this like horrible magic weakening thing. So like, who is she to complain? Basically like, I feel shitty for feeling shitty. And like, I know it's not a big deal. And Tamlin is like, no, if you care, it is a big deal. As she's telling this story, she's been like picking at the roses because she's nervous. So her hands are all nice and bloody. So he takes her hand and kisses them. And he says that she shouldn't feel guilty for feeling joy. And he says that he is drawn to her joy even when he shouldn't be. And then he takes his lips, which are now all bloody from kissing her bloody hands, and kisses her on her cheek. Heartbreakingly gentle was his kiss. And then he leaves. And you know what she did? She took a gasping breath, not realizing she was holding it. In order to avoid any awkwardness the next day because of that weird bloody kiss thing, Feyre decides to run off into the woods by herself. Somehow in that time, she managed to set a booby trap and also managed to trap the High Lord. Like, I feel like he would have seen it. I don't think she's that good of a hunter. But anyway, she like snares him, and he's like dangling from a tree, and they're like, ha ha ha, this is cute. And then he's like, I stalked you into the woods for a reason, Feyre. And he hands her some paper, and she looks at it, and it's poetry. A long time ago, go way back into the study when she was first trying to teach herself to read, she kept like a little word list, and Tamlin found it, and that's when he was kind of like, I could help you, and she blew up. So he kept that list of words, and he wrote a poem using each of those words, and each poem is dirtier and dirtier and dirtier. So yeah, he gave her dirty poems. So again, cute. He is no longer so socially inept. She's reading the poems, they're getting worse and worse, and when she finally reaches the last one, Feyre laughed like sunshine shattering aged hardened ice. So that is the end of part 1. I'm gonna go and see you in part 2. Welcome to part 2. I would say I'm creating these parts. So this is the middle bit of the book, and this is where I have to talk about the mate thing. This is a huge Sarah J. Maas thing. I believe it's also just a pretty big fae thing, is that fairies have mates, soulmates, whatever. And so if you go back to when Feyre and Tamlin were having their little chat in the rose garden and he gave her like that whole bloody kiss thing, he mentioned that that rose garden was actually a gift from his father to his mother to celebrate their like mating bond, right? Feyre is kind of like, can you explain that? Like, how is that different from just like a marriage? Your mate is your equal and match in every way. And when this quote unquote bond snaps into place, marriage is insignificant in comparison. She keeps kind of pressing him about his father because he has never spoken about his life. Like, we learned about Lucien's family, but like does he have siblings? Like, we don't know. Tamlin says that his father is actually worse than Lucien's. And remember, Lucien's dad beheaded his girlfriend in front of him. Worse than that. And his mother really loved his father. Obviously, they were mates. And so even though he was really abusive and kind of just this horrible guy, she never said anything about it. He loved his mom, but, you know, he felt kind of betrayed by her. Then when his whole family gets killed, doesn't tell us why, his father, brothers, and mother all get killed. That is why he was thrust into becoming High Lord. He didn't want it, and he very specifically went away to train to be a warrior so that he wouldn't be near his brothers and like any possibility of being High Lord. But the world had other plans for him. And Tamlin kind of gets this like moody look in his eye. So Feyre, to change the subject, is just like, what's that?
Look over there!
Where? Oh.
And it looks like they're building bonfires like out in the fields around the manor. He explains that it is something called Calanmai, which is like a fire festival, whatever. It's a big deal in the spring court. It's happening in 2 days. He's literally like, it's very fairy. There's like a ritual. They have to create magic that will like help feed the fields and the nature for the rest of the year. He's very vague about it. Don't worry. We'll get info. Feyre is like, cool, a party? Can I come? And Tamlin is straight up just like, no, you are not invited. Then they walk back towards the house and they're in the garden, and all of a sudden Tamlin gets like really freaked out and he's just like, hide, like stay hidden, don't come out no matter what you see, like don't let anybody see you. And so Feyre's like, okay, and ducks behind a bush. Then she sees Lucien and Tamlin start talking to an invisible person. Whoever it is clearly like bringing bad news, threatening them. They both seem like really, really not pleased. And it's saying things like, you're running out of time, she's going to destroy you, blah, blah, blah. Remember when we learned Lucien kind of let it slip that there was a someone behind this whole blight thing? He was like, her deal, she did this kind of thing. The invisible person is also talking about this mysterious she, right? And when this person finally leaves, Tamlin comes back to Feyre, and we learn that the thing that they were talking to is the ACOTAR. And it's just like this evil thing. We don't get a whole lot of information, but like, don't go near this person, right? Very, very, very bad. To the point where Tamlin's face was pale with fury, right? So bad news. The next day we wake up and it's time for the party. Feyre is looking out longingly at the bonfires and she's just like, you know what? Screw it. They can't keep me in. And she tries to go outside when Tamlin, of course, intercepts her. And he is looking nice, right? But he is not here to flirt. He is here to intimidate. He basically has to partake in this thing called the Great Rite. And Feyre's like, what's the great? And then Tamlin's like, just go to your chambers and don't come out. Feyre is obviously like, why? And he says, just do it. His canines began to lengthen. My heart leapt into a gallop. Don't come out until morning. Please. So yeah, he's like on the verge of turning into a beast at all times. Like something weird is happening tonight. She obeys him for a grand total of 1 paragraph. She's sitting in her room and she just hears this voice constantly calling her. There's like these beating of the drums and stuff. Like the party has started. She just feels really called. It's almost like she's in a trance. So out she goes. Of course, she immediately gets picked up by some fairy dudes and they are like harassing her. Definitely bad news. She starts to fight them off and she falls, but sturdy hands grasped me under my shoulders before I could hit the grass. They were strong hands, warm and broad, not at all like the prodding bony fingers of the 3 fairies who went utterly still as whoever caught me gently set me upright. There you are. I've been looking for you," said a deep, sensual male voice I'd never heard. The 3 lesser fairies had paled, their dark eyes wide. "Thank you for finding her for me," my savior said to them, smooth and polished. She steps out of the shelter of her savior's arms, turns to thank him, and standing before me was the most beautiful man I've ever seen. End chapter. I love it. So we have now met the mysterious hottie. Ooh, you can't really see him. Mysterious hottie from the party. Maybe an important character. I just wanted to put him on my wall. We do get a little flirty moment between Feyre and the mysterious hottie, and he is so curious as to why a human would be here. And she makes up some story of like, "Oh, I'm here with my friends," and they're like, right, like a fairy would really leave their human alone on this night. And she's kind of like, "You don't seem like you're from the Spring Court. Why are you here?" And he says, "Because tonight all of the monsters are let out of their cages." Oh. So then he, disappears into the shadows. She is too stunned to speak. And that's when Lucien runs up and is just like, "What the fuck?" He slings her over his shoulder like a sack of potatoes and doesn't let her down until he throws her onto the floor of the manor. And he's like, "Girl, what the fuck? Didn't Tamlin tell you to stay inside, right?" And then he's like, "It hasn't started yet, but he's performing the great rite. If you were there." And Lucien looks at her like she should know what he's trying to say. And Feyre's looking at him like, "I don't know what you're saying." He explains that the rite is basically a fairy sex ritual. Yep. God. Tamlin is the High Lord, and somehow he fills himself with this weird ass magic, and it puts him in a trance, and it makes him into a hunter. As the hunter, his main focus in life is to find the maiden, and they are going to couple, and their coupling will release magic throughout the realm and enrich the soil or something. But basically he loses his mind and all he can think about is sexy time, right? And Lucien is basically like, "Please stay inside. I have to go back to the cave," which is where this is all going down, "and I need to go try and control Tamlin, because when he comes out of the cave and he smells that you had been there, he's gonna go crazy looking for you." And Favor's kind of like, "Why would he care so much about me?" But also she's like, "Ew, that's horrible. Why can't men control themselves?" "Stay in your room tonight, Feyre," Lucien said, walking to the garden doors. "No matter who comes knocking, keep the door locked. Don't come out till morning." But does Feyre listen? It is now about 2 a.m. and Feyre is in her room, still not sleeping, and she hears the drums stop. So she assumes that the rite has ended, and she's just sitting in her room thinking about the girl that Tamlin chose and how, God, she's probably so pretty and so fey, and I hate this. And she just sits up in bed and she's like, "F this," and goes down to the kitchen to get cookies. I'm not kidding. As she is coming back from the kitchen, who does she run into? Tamlin. You guys know that I don't like to read dirty scenes, especially Sarah J. Maas, because she has a certain vocabulary that just makes me ill. So we're not going to go into too many details, but we get our first little steamy moment. Tamlin shows up and he's like, "Going somewhere?" And Feyre just holds up her cookie and she's like, "Midnight snack?" He is pissed. He slams her into the wall and he's like, "I was looking for you. I'm really angry," and clearly is still kind of under the influence of magic. Also, meanwhile, he is covered in paint, and so Feyre can get a very visual idea of what went down in the rite, if you know what I mean. We're talking fingerprints and stuff. And he's like, "I had to pick some other girl," and then he goes into details about what he would have done if Feyre had been there. And she tries to shove him off, but obviously that doesn't work. And he gets angry, and so he takes a bite out of her, gives her a little chomp on the neck. And Feyre is like, "Ow," but also she kind of likes it, so go girl. He says, "Never disobey me again." And Feyre's like, "Don't tell me what to do." And they kind of have this moment. It's heated, it's a standoff, and then he stalks off. This is where I need to point out something that Sarah J. Maas loves, which is sense of smell. She talks about the sense of smell a lot. Fae have a heightened sense of smell. And so if you remember way back to when Feyre first kind of found that knife and hid it up her sleeve, Tamlin knew about it because he could quote unquote smell her fear. So like when you have certain strong emotions, they like release a pheromone or like smells, you know? You know what else they're really good at smelling? If you are turned on. And this is something that is like prevalent in all of her books. And so basically when they had that like heated moment, Tamlin was like, sniff, sniff. Oh, she's into me, because that little bite kind of like made her a little excited. He's like, okay, noted. And then he walks off. The next morning, Feyre's getting ready for lunch. Everybody is incredibly hungover. She's not, but everybody else is. She is about to start covering her bruise, but then she's like, you know what? No, he should see it. Like, he should feel bad. So she doesn't. She actually like wears a shirt that accentuates the giant bite mark on her neck. She hopes that like he'll feel ashamed, right, for what he did. So she waltzes into the dining room where Lucien and Tamlin look like they're about to die. They are so hungover. And Feyre doesn't get the satisfaction of seeing Tamlin be ashamed, because Tamlin's like, it's not my fault. I gave you very specific instructions and you disobeyed me like 100 times. Lucien is super amused by this and is just watching their back and forth like a tennis match, and it's really great. Feyre eventually storms out because Tamlin is clearly like having fun with this, right? Even though she's acting angry, she also seems to be happy with this teasing as well. So I guess if everybody's happy, it's okay. Don't worry though, he does apologize. He gives her lots of roses at dinner, and for the first time in a long time, Feyre sleeps peacefully. We love that. So, recap. She has noticed the amber flecks in Tamlin's eyes, right? She caught herself worrying about him while he was out and about, and now, 3 strikes you're out. Tomboy Feyre, who has been wearing pants this entire time, has decided to wear a dress. Oh my God. She walks into the dining room for dinner the next day wearing her dress. Alice, by the way, is very pleased by this. Whatever discussion Tamlin and Lucien had been having stopped, and I tried not to look at their wide eyes as I strode to my usual place at the end of the table. Well, I'm late for something incredibly important, Lucien said, and before I could call him on his outright lie or beg him to stay, the fox-masked fairy vanished. They're sitting at like this long table, right? And Tamlin's on one end and Feyre's on the other, and she's kind of like, you're so far away. And in an instant, he uses his magic to like cut the table and they are like face to face, right? And Feyre's like, oh, okay. I thought that your magic was weakening. And he's like, yeah, that was a little harder than usual. But he's like, I'm not gonna miss a chance to show off for a beautiful lady, right? After they eat, Feyre brings Tamlin to her painting room. So ever since she got those paints, she has been given a private studio and she has not allowed anybody in. She's just been kind of painting frantically, but nobody has been allowed to see. And she decides it is time for Tamlin to see her work. Remember when they went to the lake and they went swimming and Feyre kind of told Tamlin her whole life story? She is able to show him all of her work, and he is immediately like, oh yeah, that is, you know, the forest where you hunted, and that is that, and that is that. Like he really connected with her art, which was really nice. And he actually asks if he can take one, and she says yes, and he gives her a smile more beautiful than any enchanted meadow or pool of stars. And he chooses the one of the forest, like kind of the least pretty one. And she's really touched by that. And then, of course, she asks, like, okay, listen, I think we're friends now. Can I help with the curse? Like, I'm kind of invested now. So is there anything that I can do? And like, honestly, I think she just really wants to see his face without the mask on, right? But he's like, no. Like, this is my burden. I have to do everything by myself. And Feyre's like, listen, if you aren't going to tell me anything, do you want me to just leave? Like, she kind of gets heated again. And he's like, no. And then he switches the subject. And he's talking about how many lovers he's had. Cue Feyre's sudden burning rage, right? But they never understood what it was like for him. He thinks that Feyre caring for her family is so much like his own burden, and so he feels less alone. And that's why he chose her painting of the woods. And you know what she did? She didn't lock her bedroom door that night. The next day, we are with Tammy and Feyre. They're sitting in a little glen enjoying the beauty of nature, right? And Tamlin's laying there and he's like, man, that thing that the weeping willow is singing, ooh, it's a bop. And Feyre is like, are you okay? Turns out the Fae, like I said, have really heightened senses, and it's not just their sense of smell, it's everything. Feyre is basically like missing out. Like there are colors that she hasn't seen, sounds that she can't hear, etc. Tamlin's like, hey, I could actually give you like a little boost of magic. Would you like that? And Feyre is like, absolutely. And so he suddenly gets this like little mischievous look in his eye, and he's like, well, I'll do it if I can get a kiss. And Feyre is like, yeah, down. I think he was expecting a little fight because he's sort of like, oh, okay. And he ends up giving her a kiss on each eyelid. When she opens her eyes, the world is nuts. And it's not just the world. She takes a look at our buddy here, Tamlin, and he has been wearing a glamour so as to not overwhelm her with his beauty. And so he is like glowing, pretty sure there's glitter coming off of him. Like he is nice, right? He's still got his mask on, but he's nice. She kind of like lives in that for a little bit, gives Tamlin his kiss on the cheek as payment. They just take a little nap in the sunshine, and isn't that great? The next morning, however, is chaos because Tamlin wasn't the only one wearing a glamour. He basically glamored most of his court to not freak Feyre out. Like this human that he just brought into his realm, he was like, this girl is not ready for what lives in my house. So all of a sudden, Alice comes in to like wake her up in the morning, and Alice is one of the Fae that are like made of wood. Like her skin is bark. And she's like, where's Alice? And Alice is like, girl. For like people like Alice, he kind of just changed how they looked so that Feyre wouldn't be scared. But for all the other people, because he has like tons of people running this manor, and the manor has been empty, right? Turns out he just made them invisible to not overwhelm Feyre. And so every time that Feyre has been like sneaking around the halls, like she went to go get her midnight cookie, or when she like frantically ran out to go see her dad or whatever, there have been witnesses. There are so many people around. So she comes out of her room to go get breakfast, and she's like, oh damn. That's a funny update. But then the next day is even more chaotic, not for a funny reason like, ooh, there were invisible people this whole time, but because Tamlin found a severed head. The head is branded with the mark of the Night Court. Lucian and Tamlin basically explained that this is a warning. Just a reminder that everybody knows that the Spring Court's magic is weakening and the Night Court is ready whenever to strike. Now it's time for another party. It's the summer solstice. Feyre is invited. Feyre shows up. Tamlin has disappeared. Lucian has low-key disappeared. And she meanders like anyone would towards the snack table. She reaches for a glass of fairy wine, and then Lucian just pops up and he's like, I wouldn't do it, girl. I'm serious, Lucian said as I lifted the glass to my lips, my brows raised. Remember the last time you ignored my warning? He poked me in the neck and I batted his hand away. I also remember you telling me how witchberries were harmless, and the next thing I knew I was half delirious and falling over myself, I said, recalling the afternoon from a few weeks ago. I'd had hallucinations for hours afterwards, and Lucian had laughed himself sick, enough so that Tamlin had chucked him into the reflection pool. She metaphorically raises the finger at Lucian and just chugs. She lets loose. She's having a great time. She heads over to the dance floor where there are all these musicians, and this was mentioned like in passing, but Tamlin is a great fiddle player. Who knew? So he's actually over there with the musicians, and Feyre's doing her dancing thing. It's a cute moment. Eventually, Tamlin puts down his fiddle and joins in the dancing. Once Feyre is a little sobered up, they like head out to a quiet place to talk. They have their first proper kiss that does not involve blood. So it's cute, it's sweet, but it's the summer solstice, so like how the party ends is everybody has to go watch the sunrise. So they like go off, watch the sunrise. Feyre is super duper happy, and she reflects on this thing that her dad always used to tell her, which was there's a better world outside of their like current living situation. That's what I want for you girls. Like I hope that you find it. I hope that you find this better world, this better life. Feyre was always the person who was like, no, the world sucks. Like I don't believe that there's anything better out there. And for the first time in her life, watching that sunrise with her like hot fairy guy next to her, she felt that there could be a better world. The next day, the gang is having lunch together, and Lucian is like, I am trying to eat, because Feyre and Tamlin are just like undressing each other with their eyes, basically. Then he's like, okay, not to be the bearer of bad news and like ruin your moment, but the Winter Court just sent me a letter that a blight killed a dozen kids. Sarah J. Maas, you'll see this, and we've already seen it before, but she really loves to contrast either like a really steamy moment or like a really cute romantic moment with something horrific happening. So basically Feyre is thinking like she wants to get it on this table right now, and then it's like all these kids were slaughtered. They're sitting there reflecting on this and being sad. Obviously it's very quiet, and then they realize it's really quiet in this house, and all of a sudden Tamlin is just like, hide Feyre. Lucien shoves her into the curtains, glamours her invisible. Tamlin tries to look casual in his chair, but he's not a good actor. But Feyre's freaking out because remember the last time she had to hide and it was the adder that came, and Tamlin was like, the adder will kill you gruesomely, like horrifically. So Feyre is like, what else could be coming? Like the only time I have to hide is when something is definitely gonna kill me. So like, oh no. Footsteps sounded from the hall. Even, strolling, casual. Who walks in? The hottie from Fire Night. Mysterious hottie is in the dining room. What the hell? Tamlin is like, what do you want, Rhysand? The stranger is like, damn, Tam, only my prisoners and enemies call me that. And then he's like, sup, Lucien? Like, the fox mask is appropriate. I really like it. And Lucien is like, go to hell, Rhys. Tamlin is like, what are you doing here? Rhysand, who, spoiler alert, here he is, mysterious hottie, is Rhysand. Yeah. Oh man. Rhysand is like, oh, I just wanted to check if you got my present. And he's talking about the severed head. He starts to say things that we, the reader, and Feyre don't understand about the blight and the magic weakening. And Lucien is like, what do you know? You're Amarantha's whore. Oh, we have a name, a new name, but we don't know who is this. Rhysand laughed, a lover's laugh, low, soft, intimate. Is that any way to speak to a high lord of Prythian? So, two things we get from this. Number one, Sarah J. Maas is obsessed with Rhysand's voice. Obsessed. Second of all, Rhysand is the High Lord of the Night Court, the baddest baddie. Oh no. Rhysand is about to leave, and he cryptically is like, she's waiting for you, you know, she's ready. And he starts to walk out, and then he looks at the table, and he's like, it's set for 3 people. Where's your guest, guys? He's looking at Tamlin, Lucien. He's like, 2, 3. And that's when he realizes Lucien was using a glamour to make somebody invisible. And he is pissed. He like just goes like, woof. And Feyre is exposed. When he sees Feyre, he's like, oh, hey, girl. I remember you. How you doing? Seems like you haven't stayed out of trouble like I asked you to. And Lucien claims that Feyre is his fiance. And Rhysand is like, no, you don't dabble with like mortal stuff. I know you, buddy. She still has that little knife sword thing that Lucien gave her, remember? And so she like holds it up, and Rhysand just like picks it out of her fingers. And he's like, that really won't do you any good. He's basically like, I'm really amazed that you're still here. Like, you should be running from this place. And when he sees that Feyre looks confused, he's like, oh, she doesn't know. And Tamlin growls. He's like, you have seconds to leave, Rhysand. Seconds. Then she starts to feel a little funny in her head. Like, she feels like there's almost a claw or like a hand going into her head. Turns out it's Rhysand, and he's like, oh, I forgot that human minds are as easy to shatter as eggshells. And Tamlin is losing his shit. Like, he is feral. Rhysand starts reading out Feyre's dirty, dirty thoughts for fun because he is like a mind reader or something. And he's like, ooh, she would like to feel that bite, not just on her neck. Tamlin is like essentially foaming at the mouth at this. Feyre is frozen in fear. Tamlin all of a sudden is just like, please don't tell Amarantha about her. Like, he seems so sad and so kind of pathetic, and he starts to grovel, and he like bows down to Rhysand and basically like kisses his boots and is just like, please don't do it, you know? Feyre is still too scared to move, but deep down she is pissed. But Rhysand Seems like he's having a grand old time. In the end, Rhysand is like, I will consider not telling her. But by the way, girl, what's your name? And Feyre just gives out like a random name. The first person she thinks of is like her neighbor back home. And she's like, my name is Claire, what's her name? Claire Better. And Rhysand is like, well, that was fun. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys under the mountain. And he leaves them alone in a horrible, trembling silence. After Rhysand leaves, Feyre like jettisons off to her room. She's shaking, she's scared, and she's just sitting in her bed when she hears the door kind of creak open. And it's Tamlin, and he just kind of like collapses onto her bed, and he's like head in his hands like, I'm so sorry. His voice was hoarse and empty. Feyre is just like, no, like, it's okay, you know, like you didn't invite this guy into your house. And Tammy's like, no babe, I'm sending you home. He basically created his own loophole in the treaty, and he's like, you've got to leave. And Feyre's like, did I do something wrong? Like, I really thought, like, before Lucien told us about the dead kids and Rhysand came and threatened my life, like, I thought we were, you know, there was something there, right? And he's like, no, you're perfect. But there are people who will hurt you because of what you are to me. And he thought he was strong enough to shield Feyre, but obviously not if Rhysand could just, like, walk in. This, of course, turns into our first steamy scene. I'm not going to go into details, but Tamlin uses a claw to take off her intimates. They fall asleep in each other's arms, you know, wake up in the middle of the night. Tamlin's like, you should go back to sleep. You're leaving tomorrow. And Feyre's like, tomorrow? He whispers, I love you. And they fall asleep. Feyre wakes up again and she is alone. For what it's worth, Lucien actually seems upset that she's leaving. Like, remember, he was on team let's kill Feyre this whole time. He's actually quite sad that she's going. Tamlin just like puts her in the carriage. Like, this is all happening in like a page. Tamlin just goes and plops her in the carriage and he says, I love you again. And Feyre just kind of chokes up like she can't say anything and rides away. Allegedly, the reason why she doesn't say anything is because she doesn't want him to have another burden on his shoulders. She hopes that he can just forget her, right? If she had said, oh, I love you too, he might have, like, I don't know, remembered her more. But anyway, she gets back home. She's back in the mortal realm. And Tamlin wasn't lying about taking care of the family. They are pretty much wealthy again. And everybody is like, oh, you're back from your aunt's house? Like, blah, blah, blah. Everything's fine. Like, they're keeping up with the whole ruse. Days pass and Feyre is just constantly thinking about the Suriel. And remember how he said, stay with the High Lord? She just, like, that is just running in the back of her mind over and over and over again. Weeks pass. And Feyre, all of a sudden, is just like, by the way, I know you're lying. And Feyre's like, what? And Nesta said that whatever Tamlin did, like his glamour and stuff like that, just didn't work on her. So, like, 1 second, a beast has come and taken Feyre away, and her dad and everybody, like, they're all screaming and crying, and, like, snap of the fingers, and all of a sudden, Dad and Elaine are like, wow, that's so nice that Feyre gets to go stay with our aunt. And Nesta is still standing there, like, horrified, like, what? And it actually turns out that Nesta went after Feyre. Nesta actually, like, went to the border and tried to find a way in, and she couldn't. But, like, Nesta cared enough to try and go get her sister back. Like, damn, maybe I was wrong about you. And then Nesta is basically like, tell me everything. And Feyre does. And at the end of it, the only thing that Nesta says is, can you teach me to paint? So anyway, they're painting, and Nesta opens up about why she hates their dad. Like, she's the one who's the hardest and, like, openly just, like, hates their dad. And it's because he just, like, didn't put his pride away. Like, he could have gotten a job, but he would have had to have, like, I don't know, begged or, like, done something that his pride just wouldn't let him do. And she also is like, he let their mom die by not fighting hard enough to find a cure. And then she says, you would have gone to the ends of the earth to save your High Lord, right? And Feyre's like, yeah. And it clicks. So she's gonna find her way back, right, to her High Lord, to her Tamlin. But then one day, the family is sitting down for lunch. Daddy sits down And he says, I'm thinking of buying the better land. I heard a rumor that it'll go up for sale soon, since none of the family survived and it would be a good investment property. And Feyre's like, what happened to the betters? And Elaine was like, oh man, it was bad. The house burnt down. Everybody died. They couldn't even find Claire's body. And Feyre is like, Claire Better? And Elaine's like, yeah, don't you remember her? And Feyre's like, yeah. And that was the name that she gave Rhysand, remember? She just kind of like picked a name out of the hat just to throw him off. Dead. Whole family. And this is when Feyre just breaks. Remember that she promised Tamlin that she wouldn't tell her family anything? Like, she's just supposed to let the glamour continue. And she's just like, oh no, this changes everything. And so she tells her family to hire guards, to get out when anything seems strange. Iron doesn't do shit. Fairies can lie. And she's basically like, prepare for war or something really bad. I'm leaving, by the way. Like, I'm going back. Nesta has just like a way with words, and she's basically like, we don't need you here, Feyre. Like, don't come back. Basically, she's like, stop coming back here. Like, live your life. You're free from us. Go to your High Lord and like, don't worry about coming back. Feyre hops on a horse, crosses the border, gets to Tamlin's house somehow with no problems, and it is empty. She's going through the rubble, like it seems like the manor has also been like low-key destroyed, and she's running through and she's like, Tamlin, Tamlin, and she hears something. What is it? Alice. And she's like, girl, you are not supposed to be here. And she does confirm that Tamlin and Lucy are alive, but they are in Under the Mountain. Whatever the hell that is, right? There was this curse that lasted 7 times 7 years, which is 49. And now that time is up. And she, this mysterious she, is bringing Tamlin to wherever they are to break him and, you know, make an example out of him, kind of thing. So who is the mysterious she? Amarantha, the person that Rhysand was talking about. Amarantha was sent by the king of Hybern about 100 years ago to come to Prythian and sort of like do some spy stuff. Remember the Serial had mentioned that? But the Serial also said that 50 years ago, one of the spies defected, and that was Amarantha. And we get this whole long story about her sister that isn't, it will be important later, so I'm just going to give you like a Reader's Digest version, which is basically Amarantha had a younger sister named Clythia who fell in love with this mortal named Jurian. Turns out Jurian was just using Clythia to get information about Amarantha's troops. Even when we found out that Jurian was lying, Clythia still loved him, and then Jurian killed Clythia. Now Amarantha hates humans with a rage that you can't even imagine. So when the mortals and the fairies signed that peace treaty, she was pissed and like made it her duty to like rip apart the mortal world, right? And she thought the way to do that is she had to get Prythian on her side. And why get them on her side when she could just rule them all? She basically like weaseled her way in. She buddied up with the High Lords, talking about like being a trade ambassador between them and Hybern, whatever. And then she threw a party. And at the party, she poisoned the wine in such a way that she stole the High Lords' powers. So Amarantha is the blight. Like literally she is the blight, stealing all the power, making it act really funny. That's all her doing. That's when Alice turns around and is like, and you could have broken the curse, you dumbass human. Tamlin couldn't tell you because of his curse, but Feyre could have freed him. You little dum-dum. What is Tamlin's curse? So apparently Tamlin knew Amarantha before all of this was happening. Like, because he's a royal, he had connections with Hybern, and like somehow apparently they had met many times. And Amarantha was into Tamlin, and she kept making these advances, and he was like not interested. She was actually so persistent that Tamlin sent Lucian to go talk to her and be like, can you back off? Like, Tamlin is never going to be interested in you. And she's the one who ripped out his eyeball. That's why he has a metal eye and a huge scar on his face. It's because of her. Damn. But in order to apologize for hurting Tamlin's best friend, she throws a party. And Tamlin is like, you know what? Like, let's just go to this party, even though like the last party was obviously didn't go well. Let's just go to this party and hopefully like we can resolve everything without bloodshed, right? And that was the party where their masks got frozen on their faces. This was Amarantha's last time to like shoot her shot, and Tamlin was still not into it, and he said he'd rather bed and marry a human before ever touching her, and so the curse was born. He had to find a human willing to marry him, but not just any human, a human that hated fairies so much that she'd kill one. So he had to send his own men over the border for bait. So remember how he said that Andras was looking for a cure in the mortal realm? Technically he was, but he was basically being a sacrifice, hoping that a human would kill him so that they could like get the curse broken, right? Here's the real kicker. There is no part of the treaty that says a life for a life. The whole thing that Tamlin said about like, you killed Andras, so I get to take you back to my land, didn't exist. Tamlin took her because of the curse, not because of the treaty. Basically, they don't need to get married. Feyre just needs to say that she loves him, which she didn't do, but she was about to do. And now it's too late. The curse, the timeline, it's done. So, ugh. And yeah, the Spring Court is the only court that hasn't fully fallen yet. So they're still allowed to like live in the Spring Court. But everybody else, all the High Lords and everything, are all stuck under the mountain, which is Amarantha's creepy ass court. It's like a giant cave thing. And so now, because the time is up, Tamlin and Lucien and everybody have been taken there. And you could have broken it, Alice snarled, those sharp teeth mere inches from my face. All you had to do was say that you loved him. Say that you loved him and mean it with your whole useless human heart, and his power would have been freed, you stupid, stupid girl. And Feyre's like, I'm sorry. And Alice just snorts, and she's like, tell that to Tamlin. He only had 3 days left to break the curse, and he let you go. So basically, he put Feyre before the entire court. You know, like if he had kept Feyre there, and she had hopefully said, I love you within those 3 days, the curse would have been broken, but he was so obsessed with keeping her safe and sending her home, he just gave up on the curse and screwed his whole court in the process. And if she had broken it, that means he would have gotten his full powers back, and there was a chance that he could beat Amarantha. And so Feyre takes us all in, and she's like, okay, cool, so which way is under the mountain?
Into the thick of it.
End of part 2. Part 3. Ready to go under the mountain? Feyre's leading the way. Alice takes her as close as possible to under the mountain the whole way. She's like, you are a dumb girl, like you are dumb. But she takes her to kind of this cave, and she's like, just keep walking straight, you'll be fine. But she mentioned something very important. She says that there is still part of the curse that Alice can't talk about. Feyre has to figure it out on her own. But Alice says, keep your ears open, girl, and listen to what you hear. Feyre manages to get under the mountain quite easily, but she very quickly is picked up by somebody, the ACOTAR. She is dragged over to the throne room where we finally get to meet Amarantha in the flesh, and she is sitting on like this scary looking throne in the middle of the room, and someone is sitting next to her. Who? Tammy. Yep. Uh-oh. But what's weird about Tamlin is that when Feyre walks in, he shows no reaction. His eyes don't widen. He just looks at her kind of unimpressed, uninterested. Amarantha is like, why are you here? Feyre says that she is here to claim the one that she loves, Tamlin, High Lord of the Spring Court. And as Alice said, it's already too late, so even her claiming her love of him right now doesn't do any good. And Amarantha says one of my favorite lines. She turns to Tamlin and she's like, you lovely thing. You actually made a human worm fall in love with you. I don't know why she says a human worm, but it makes me really happy. Anyway, we have to also note that she is wearing a ring on her finger, and it's got an eyeball, a human eyeball. It is a piece of Jurian, the guy who killed her sister, and she dismembered him and now wears him as jewelry. So that's the kind of lady we're dealing with here. But then Amarantha's like, I'm confused. Who was that girl that we killed then? This girl Claire that we brought in claimed that she never knew Tamlin, so I guess it's true. But man, it was fun hearing her scream kind of thing. She turns to Tamlin and is like, so who is this? Like, if Claire isn't your true love, who's this girl? Of course, Tamlin is like, I've never seen her before in my life. Like, Rizan must have glamored her, like making up some weird ass excuse, right? Amarantha gets bored really quickly with this like he said she said kind of thing, so she's like, okay, if you want your Tammy back, how about we play a little game? And she proposes that if Feyre can complete 3 tasks given to her by Amarantha, she can have Tamlin back. Great. And Feyre's ready to bargain, right? So she's like, I'll take Tamlin back and his curse will be broken and all of his court can leave here and remain free forever, right? And Amarantha is like, ooh, I'm gonna spice it up even more, girl. You can either do the 3 tasks or you can just answer a riddle. Curse broken instantaneously. But get the riddle wrong or fail the tasks, well, let's do 1 task per full moon. What do you say? She looks at Tamlin, and for the briefest second, he widens his eyes in a clear no. But she had no other choice. She loved him with a fierceness that swept up her whole heart. And she agrees, and then the entire hall beats her up, breaks her bones. All the people in the throne room just descend on her and beat her to a pulp. So, good start. She wakes up, broken and bloody, in a prison cell, and Lucien is there. He snuck in there and uses his healing power to heal her just enough so that she'll be okay, but like not enough so that the guards notice. He's basically like, just don't die, okay? And then he runs off. She gets bread and water 3 times a day and just sort of sits around until she's finally summoned to the throne room for a little chat. And Amarantha really wants to know her name. She is clearly not named Claire, and so she just keeps asking, and Feyre just keeps refusing. It's like this weird standoff. Rhysand, Amarantha said, not needing to raise her voice to summon him. My heart became a leaden weight as those casual, strolling steps sounded from behind me. They stopped when they were beside me, far too close for my liking. Amarantha lifted her brows. Is this the girl you saw at Tamlin's estate? He brushed some invisible fleck of dust off his black tunic before he surveyed me. Humans all look alike to me. I forgot to mention, Claire did not just get killed. Claire is like nailed to the wall of the throne room. Her dead body is like hanging from the wall. So anyway, Feyre is still like, I'm not going to tell you my name. So finally, Amarantha just grabs Lucien and is about to torture him. And so finally, Feyre is like, Feyre! My name's Feyre, okay? But we get our riddle. There are those who seek me a lifetime, but never we meet, and those I kiss, but who trample me beneath ungrateful feet. At times I seem to favor the clever and the fair, but I bless all those who are brave enough to dare. By large my ministrations are soft-handed and sweet, but scorned I become a difficult beast to defeat. For though each of my strikes lands a powerful blow, when I kill, I do it slow. She sits in her prison cell for 2 days just thinking about it, coming up with nothing because Feyre sucks at riddles. So then it's a full moon and it is showtime. Time for our first task. The throne room has been turned into this weird labyrinth of tunnels. Basically, her first task is to prove her hunting skills. Amarantha heard that Feyre is a very good hunter, so she's like, this one should be easy for you, girl. She gets thrown into the canyon cavernous tunnels and she starts to hear a little rumbling. The thing that comes out is a giant worm. It's Shai-Hulud, basically. It's coming at her and she has to like run and try and kill this thing before it kills her. She runs around. It's very exciting. People are watching from above, jeering at her. She is like knee deep in mud trying to run from this thing. And that is when Feyre focuses and learns 2 things. Number 1 being the worm is blind. It's relying on sense of smell. Number 2, there are a ton of bones left over from like whatever the worm had eaten previously that she can possibly use as a tool. All right, she's thinking. She gets to work using those bones. She also covers herself in the mud, and it's not just mud, it's like nasty stuff. So she no longer smells like her, so the worm can't track her, right? And one of the fairies who is, watching from above is like, what's it doing? A deep, elegant voice replied this time, she's building a trap. Rhysand smiled. His violet eyes twinkled. She is getting ready to lure it into the trap. She uses a bone to cut open her hand so that a little bit of blood comes out, and that's what's going to get the worm to come over. But because she looked down at her hand for a second, she loses sight of the worm, and all of a sudden she's like, oh shit, where is it? And she hears a voice just go, to your left. Attaboy Lucien. Yeah, it was our boy Lucien who saved her life. She manages to run mere seconds before the worm gets her, and she finally gets it into her trap. She definitely broke some bones in the meantime, but she killed the worm. Amarantha obviously is pissed, but somebody in the crowd is happy because out of all of the people in the court, only one of them bet that she would win. So somebody just made a lot of money. So good job, Feyre. Feyre doesn't really care about that because she looks down at her arm, which is broken, and the bone is like sticking out. And so she faints, which is like the rest of the book. Feyre spends a lot of it unconscious. So this is about a week later. Feyre is laying in her cell. Her arm is still broken and she is still covered in the mud that she was covered in during the trial. So she has like not bathed. She has like a gash, like huge ass open wound, and she's covered in like mud and feces for like a week. She's also being given like rotten food. She is pretty sure that she is gonna die of an infection. She has this really bad fever. She is kind of like, she knows deep in her soul, like, I'm fading. But then somebody walks in. It's the hottie from the party with the nice voice but a nasty personality. Rhysand is in the room, everybody. Woo-hoo. He is like, hey girl, you made me a lot of money that night. He's the one who bet that she would win. So great. Anyway, he's like, let me see your arm. And Feyre is stubborn, so even though she knows that she's about to die, she's just like, I would literally rather touch a slug. Like, no thank you. But he doesn't like to be told no, so he just kind of grabs her arm. Her arm is broken, so like grabbing it kind of hurts, right? Rhysand says, listen, I'll heal you. And Feyre is like, what's it gonna cost me? Like, she's played this game before. 2 weeks every month. 2 weeks of his choosing. Feyre will stay with him at the night court after the trials, assuming she lives, right? If she dies, deal's off. She obviously says no. I believe she also spits on him, but he's like, listen, you are like absolutely going to die of this wound. You have the tiniest chance that your little foxy friend Lucien could somehow find his way back in here and heal you, but he might not come in time. You're about to die. So either take my bargain, I heal you, and you can go live happily ever after with Tamlin if you win, or you just die and Tamlin dies and everybody dies. He's basically like, you don't really have a choice here, girl. Like, come on. Finally, she bargains it down to 1 week and she accepts his offer. He grabs her arm one final time. She blacks out, wakes up, her arm is healed. She's not covered in mud anymore, but she has a new tattoo. All the way down her arm, and like in the middle of her palm there's an eyeball. That wasn't part of the deal, but yeah, she's got a sick tat now. And the next time she sees Rhysand, she's like, you didn't tell me about the tattoo. And Rhysand is just like, oh, you didn't ask. He also hints that Tamlin is going to be pissed at her when he sees it, and she realizes that Rhysand didn't do this to help her. It wasn't like out of the goodness of his heart. He just seems to really hate Tammy and like did this whole thing just to like get another dig in at him, right? So she feels very used. She feels very silly that she was tricked by Rhysand, and she tries to spit on him again, but he was ready this time and he bounced. There is this really random scene where she is also forced to do chores. The first one, she has to clean the floors, but the bucket and mop that she has is like dirty water. But as she's doing that, this redheaded lady walks up to her, and at first she thinks it's Amarantha, so she's freaked out, but then she's like, it kind of looks like Lucien. And it is. It's Lucien's mom, and she was there in the throne room when Amarantha was going to torture Lucien in order to get Feyre to say her name. Do we remember this? That's when Feyre broke and was like, no, stop, like, don't hurt him. His mom saw that, and as a thank you, she actually like does some magic stuff and cleans the water so that she can clean the hallway. Right? Some people are kind of on her side, I guess. Her next chore is that she has to go into one of the rooms and clean the fireplace because somebody spilt lentils in there, and she has to like separate the lentils from the ash of the fire. I don't know. It's stupid. So anyway, she's in there like trying to get through the soot and stuff. It's another semi-impossible task. And whose room is it? Rhysand's room. He walks in and he's like, can I help you? And she ends up finally asking him about the whole Claire thing. She's like, you remember what I look like, buddy? Like, we met at the party prior when I thought you were just this mysterious hottie. So why did you give Claire's name to Amarantha? Rhysand basically just says like, it's boring down here. I like to play games. Feyre starts peppering him with questions, as she loves to do with everyone, but she's asking him specifically about his powers because he seems to have them still. He like went into her mind, so he still has powers, and she's like, what is this about? Can you shift like Tamlin can, blah blah blah? And that's when he pops out massive bat wings. So yeah, he can shift. He is a bat boy, and we're gonna hear about the wings. Boy, are we gonna hear about the wings. And finally, her last question is, do you know the answer to Amarantha's riddle? And Rhysand is literally like, damn, you've got balls to even ask that, girl. Like, no, obviously I can't tell you. Amarantha can put a spell on all of them, like how Tamlin couldn't talk about the curse. He does clean up the ashes for her because he was impressed that, you know, she's got big balls. And then to take it one step further, Rhysand actually goes to the guards and is like, you are not allowed to give her any more chores. Like, you aren't allowed to touch her. Just leave her alone. Like, just let her sit in her cell and rot, okay? Stop being mean. And once again, Sarah J. Maas just cannot stress enough how sexy his voice is. The words caress, erotic, purring, velvet. That's the vibe. Okay, Feyre is alone in her cell for another 4 days until some night court ladies come and take her away, and they start getting her dressed in this like really skimpy dress. Like basically she's wearing nothing, and she obviously doesn't like that, so she's low-key fighting them when Rhysand walks in and is like, I wouldn't do that if I were you. Basically what's going on is Amarantha is throwing some kind of midsummer party, which doesn't make sense because didn't they have the summer solstice a while ago? Anyway, she's having a midsummer party, and Rhysand is bringing Feyre. She is also covered in body paint so that Rhysand can tell if anyone touches her, because it would smudge the paint, and so he'll be able to see if she's been touched. Lovely. They head to the throne room. Same setup as usual. Amarantha's in her throne. Tamlin is sitting next to her. Amarantha looks at Feyre and is like, what is this? And Rhysand tells them about their little bargain. Not only does he get to piss Tamlin off, he looks bored, but his knuckles are apparently white as he's gripping onto his chair because he just found out that Feyre belongs to Rhysand for a week every month for the rest of her life. But it also is there to piss off Amarantha because it sure sounds like Rhysand is betting on Feyre passing the trials and walking out of here alive, right? When he says the rest of her life, kind of sounds like he thinks she's gonna live for a while. And this is where we hit probably the most controversial part of the book. I'm not going to give my opinions on it, but just know that this is a part that is talked about a lot, and that is that the next thing Rhysand does is use his kind of mind control powers to get Feyre to start drinking the wine. And remember the last time she had fairy wine, she was like quite loopy, right? Well, he manages to get her to drink enough that she blacks out. She doesn't remember the night at all. She wakes up in her prison cell, throwing up, sick. The only good thing we could say is that she checks herself, she checks the body paint, and all she can see is that somebody definitely had hands on her waist holding her, but other than that she wasn't touched. Then Lucien walks in, and Lucien kind of gives her an update of what happened that night, and he was basically like, yeah, Rhysand made you dance with him all night or sit on his lap, and like, you weren't dancing the waltz, girl, like maybe it's better that you don't remember, kind of thing. This is when Feyre is like, why didn't you come and help me? You know, like he healed her that one time, but when she really needed it, when her arm was broken, he never came. And like, that's the whole reason why she's in this stupid bargain with Rhysand in the first place. Do you remember when she was fighting the worm and Lucien screamed, to your left? Yeah. Amarantha really didn't like that. And so instead of killing him, Tamlin basically had to beg Amarantha not to kill Lucien. He got 20 lashes and basically could not get out of bed until that last night to see Feyre at the party. So if Feyre hadn't taken Rhysand's offer, like she would have died. There would have been no way she would have gotten help in time. And he's about to leave, but Feyre has one more question, and she's like, how is Tamlin handling like being under that curse? Like, is there anything we can do? And Lucien's like, what? And Feyre's like, the curse that's making him act like he doesn't know me. And Lucien's like, That's not a curse, that's a strategy. Tamlin is trying everything in his power to not show any emotion towards Feyre because that will just make Amarantha want to hurt her more. And if he reacts strongly to one thing, like he really doesn't like it when blah 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 happens, Amarantha will make sure that happens all the time. So Lucien is like, no, he's doing this to keep you as safe as possible. So that's sweet. Like, Tamlin is obviously not happy to be here, right? He's suffering in silence. So this drunken party thing goes on almost every single night. She gets dressed up, body painted, is forced to drink, blacks out, wakes up the next morning hungover. Sarah J. Maas writes it as almost an act of mercy because her being drunk all the time is making her forget all of the time under the mountain. Like, all of the days are just blurring together. At least now she doesn't have as many painful memories, right? And then to like recover from the parties, she sleeps all day, right? So basically, like, time is actually flying by for her. But then one night, Rhysand comes in and tells her that her second task is the next day. It has already been a month. And they have this little fight. Like, they're always snippy with each other. But Rhysand, like, says something about Tamlin's court fell and, like, isn't he weak? And Feyre's kind of like, didn't the night court fall? And that's when we see a little bit of pain in Rhysand's eyes. He's always, like, teasing and like you can never take him seriously, but he actually looked a little hurt. And even if she hadn't caught that look in his eyes, she could physically feel his sadness. And that's when she realized, ooh, this tattoo is not a normal tattoo. Like, she could feel his emotions, which ruh-roh. So they head to the party, but Rhysand has a job first. Apparently somebody from the summer court tried to escape and was obviously caught. Amarantha wants to know how he escaped, was he working with anyone else, etc., and calls upon Rhysand to use his like mental mind reading power thing to get answers. To which Rhysand reports, it looks like he was just gonna run, there weren't any accomplices, there wasn't a motive, he's just a typical coward. And the High Lord of the Summer Court is in the room, and he looks like a little relieved by that answer, which makes Feyre think maybe Rhysand let some stuff slide. Amarantha tells Rhysand to shatter this guy's mind. So Rhysand literally just looks at the guy and melts his brain. Like, his brain literally comes out of his nose. Amarantha is like, I said shatter his mind, not his brain. So she basically wanted him to live in madness as torture for the rest of his life, but Rhysand just killed him. Kind of as a mercy killing, right? And he's just like, oops, I got carried away, my bad. And he just goes off to the drink table. So we start to think maybe we don't know everything there is to know about this Lord of the Night Court. It is the day of the second task. We're wasting no time. Feyre gets lowered into this weird chamber, and on the other side of it is Lucien. And whatever she has to do, he's wrapped up in it too. Amarantha is like, we're gonna practice riddles since you still haven't solved the first one I gave you. So her and Lucien are like in this thing. There are these like metal spikes that are possibly on fire, lowering towards both of them. And there's a riddle written on the wall, and basically there are 3 answers, and she just has to pull the correct lever and the spikes will stop. And what is something that Feyre struggles with? Reading. She can't read or write still, barely. And Lucien is too far away, and like whatever is in between them, like he can't even yell the answer to her. Like, she's completely on her own. So she is just standing there watching the spikes come down and down. They're almost on top of her. She can feel the heat. She is just like mentally saying her goodbyes to Tamlin. She looks up at him and like she's ready to die. Lucien is screaming like, just pick one, like pick a lever. Like, we're gonna die anyway, just pick one. She's like, okay, yeah, I'm just gonna pick one. And she goes to reach for the second lever and she gets this horrible pain. She kind of recoils and she's like, what the fuck? So then she reaches for another one, but there's no pain. So she's like, reaches for the final one, And ouch, this one's pain. And this pain, by the way, is emanating from her tattoo. So she looks up at Rhysand, but he's like not even paying attention. So she's like, this is so weird. She is about to be impaled, her and Lucien. And so she decides to just pull the one that doesn't hurt her. And she's right. The spikes stop like within centimeters of both of them. And she's free. She passed the second test. She gets out of her little death pod, whatever it was, and she is like shaking, crying, convulsing. This was the closest she's ever felt to death when she hears a voice in her head. The voice says, "Don't let her see you cry. Stand up. Don't give her the satisfaction of seeing you break." So she somehow gets up, and Rhysand's mind voice, because it's Rhysand, is like, "Good girl. Now don't look at Tamlin, just stare at her. Now walk away. Chin high, let the crowd part, one step after another." And she finally makes it to her cell. Rhysand disappears from her brain, and then she breaks. She is essentially like, I came that fucking close to death in the second trial. There's no way I'm passing the third one. It's over. She's prepared to die at any moment, basically. And eventually Rhysand comes in and tells her to stop crying. How does he get her to stop crying, you ask? He licks the tears off of her face with his tongue. Yeah. And she's like so disgusted by it that she stops crying. This is a pretty common thing in Sarah J. Maas's writing, is that in order to distract someone from usually sadness or fear, a character will make them have a different strong emotion, so usually anger. So that's what Rhysand does. Whenever he doesn't want Feyre to be sad, he tries to get her feeling feisty. He makes fun of her for not being able to read. He's just an asshole in general. But when he leaves, she's not sad anymore. It took me a long while to realize that Rhysand, whether he knew it or not, had effectively kept me from shattering completely. The parties start again, and at this point, Feyre is the one asking for the wine. She's like, I actually really liked that blackout thing. Like, let's keep it going. One day, her night court ladies are helping her get dressed when suddenly they hear someone coming by the hallway, and it's the Adder. And the night court women are suddenly like, shh, and they hide. And Feyre's like, these women are spies, holy shit. So yeah, the night court ladies, we don't know whose side they're on, but I mean, they're probably working for Rhysand, but Feyre's just like, oh, okay, I can jam with this. We overhear that King Hybern is ready to launch a war on the mortal realms. And this is her worst fear because she's trying to save Tamlin. She thinks she's gonna die in the third trial. So she's like, okay, we've lost Prythian. And now I'm hearing that Hybern is gonna attack the mortal realm. And so I've just lost my family. Like everything is fucked basically. And she's sitting in her cell, slowly losing her mind because she has absolutely lost all hope at this point. She hears, of all things, music. Someone is listening to music and it's like trickling into her cell somehow. There was beauty in this music. Beauty and goodness. And she literally goes on a trip. Like this music takes her to like a meadow and then she's flying over a castle. The music was Tamlin's fingers strumming my body. It was the gold in his eyes and the twist of his smile. It was that breathy chuckle and the way that he said those three words. It was this I was fighting for. This I had sworn to save. And then the music made a quilt that wrapped around her and warmed her bones. And it was 2 days until her final trial. We have reached the last party of Feyre's life. Woo! Rhysand, for some reason, is a little bit late. So she gets all dolled up, painted, whatever, and she's just waiting in the throne room. And she is like so tapped out that she's not really paying attention. And she doesn't even realize that Tamlin is standing right next to her. He is standing like real close to her and just kind of like brushes his hand next to hers. And she has to stay really still, right? Like nobody can see this going on. But he kind of like walks out of the throne room and kind of looks back and Feyre follows. They somehow both manage to get out of the throne room without being seen. And this is where we get a steamy scene. They figure that these are their like very last moments together. So let's just say they're making it count. But then party pooper Rhysand shows up. And Rhysand basically just starts yelling at Tamlin and he's like, do you know how much Amarantha would love to see this and use it as an excuse to hurt you? Like she'll probably kill Lucien now. Like, because she's already going to kill Feyre, right? Why don't you, before Amarantha sees anything, why don't you be a good little High Lord, buckle your belt, and go back to the throne room? And to Feyre's horror, Tamlin listens. He whispers, I love you, and just pieces out. And this is when Rhysand just like lets Feyre have it. He's like, are you stupid? Like, can you imagine what we have risked, you know, if you got caught? And Feyre's like, what do you care? And Rhysand's like, what do I care? What do I care? He's really, you know, these Fae men, let me tell you, drama. But before he can continue, he like looks at the door and then just like pounces on Feyre. He's kissing her all over, right? Getting that paint real messy. And who walks in but Amarantha and Tamlin? We're not sure if Tamlin understands what's happening, but Amarantha sees Feyre and is like, I knew it. These humans. But what we realize is that Rhysand actually was doing this to save Tamlin's ass, or Tamlin and Feyre, because when they were having their little steamy scene, he fucked up all of her paint. So Amarantha could look at Feyre and be like, who were you with? Rhysand wasn't here yet, you know? So Rhysand took that like couple of seconds to violate Feyre, but in a way it saved them. It got Amarantha off the, you know, do you get that? It looks like he was the one who smeared the paint. Rhysand tells her, go to your cell, no dancing, go to sleep. Rhysand does come to her cell that night to vent, and Feyre has been trying to get the taste of his lips off of hers for hours, apparently. Rhysand admits that the rumors are true, where, you know how Lucian kept calling him Amarantha's whore? So apparently Amarantha, as well as having him as like her personal torture person, she also asks him to do some services for her in the bedroom, sort of thing. Feyre is like, why are you telling me this? And all of his swagger and nastiness was gone. Rhysand says, because I'm tired and lonely and you're the only person I can talk to without putting myself at risk. He tells her that if she breaks the curse tomorrow, because tomorrow is her third and final trial, if she breaks the curse, Tamlin's power is going to be so great that he could potentially kill Amarantha. Like, that's what he has to do. He can't hesitate. Curse breaks, kill Amarantha, right? And if he kills Amarantha, everyone will be free. Because remember, Feyre only bargained for Tamlin and the Spring Court to be free. But if Tamlin zaps our mean little lady over here, everyone will be free from her wrath. So that's why Rhysand is helping her so much. He's like, you are going to help all of us, my friend. And that's also why he's been especially picking on Tamlin, because the madder that Tamlin is, the more power he's going to use. So if Rhysand is like ringing him up into this tight little ball before he snaps, he's hoping that that's actually like helping him in a weird way. So everything Rhysand does has like a weird reason behind it. He's always like 2 or 3 steps ahead. And he's also hoping that the fact that he hasn't touched her, other than that time that he kissed her in order to like get the paint all whatever, he's hoping that the fact that he, you know, didn't take advantage of Feyre and helped kind of drug her through this experience to help lower her trauma level, again, questionable. He's hoping that his treatment of Feyre will get Tamlin to not kill him. He's like, I'm winding Tamlin up, but hopefully because I didn't hurt his true love, he'll go easy on me. Does that make sense? And he's also being punished the most. Like, he is Amarantha's whore, as they say, because his family was the one who killed Tamlin's family. And so Amarantha loves Tamlin, so she's going to hurt Rhysand in order to get revenge for Tamlin. I don't know. This doesn't even need to be in here, to be honest. I don't know why this was added. Feyre replays everything and agrees that Rhysand is actually keeping her alive. Like we've said, he's like keeping her from shattering completely, whether even if that means that she's like angry all the time or drugged, whatever. And she finally says, when you healed my arm, you didn't need to bargain with me. You could have demanded every single week of the year, and I would have said yes. A half smile appeared on his sensuous lips. I know, he said, and vanished. All right, final task. Whew. Let's do it, people. We're powering through. Amarantha, we're in the throne room. Amarantha says, any last words? Feyre, I love you. No matter what she says about it, no matter if it's only my insignificant human heart, even when they burn my body, I love you. He didn't react. He didn't even grip the arms of his throne. I suppose that was his way of enduring it, even if it made my chest cave in. even if his silence killed me. Amarantha said sweetly, "Oh, you'll be lucky, my darling, if we have enough left of you to burn." The last task, easy. Stab 3 innocent fairies in the heart. The 3 fae that she has to kill are kneeling in front of her with hoods over their faces, but one by one they take the hoods off so that Feyre has to look them in the eye as she does it. So the first one is obviously crying, screaming, begging for his life, but she does it. She stabs him right in the heart. She goes on to the second one, which is an older woman, and she is just praying, and she seems to be kind of ready, and she kind of looks at Feyre, and she's just like, you know, do it fast. I understand. And so Feyre kills the second one. The third and final fae, the hood is ripped off, and who is kneeling before her? Tamlin. This is fucked up. And at this point, even Rhysand's face is pale. Like, he didn't expect this either. Feyre's options are essentially kill Tamlin, but his court and Feyre herself will be saved. Or if Feyre kills herself, him and his court will be Amarantha's slaves. And then she and the King of Hybern are going to take over the mortal realm. So she is very stuck. But then Feyre does the damn thing. She uses that beautiful brain of hers that's been missing for a lot of this book. Remember when Alice told her to listen, to hear the things that come through her ears, right? She starts replaying every conversation that's gone on in this book. Because of the curse, Tamlin and Lucian couldn't outright tell her things, but if they happened to leave a door open and she happened to eavesdrop, so she combs over every word, and here's what she realizes. Amarantha wouldn't kill the one person she wants, right? She wants Tamlin. So she's either really sure Feyre won't do it, or she's got some kind of trick up her sleeve. Number 2, Lucian and the Adder both said something weird to Tamlin, that he has a heart of stone. Lucian said it jokingly like, "Man, for a guy with a heart of stone, you're sure warming up." And the Adder said something similar, right? Which could just be a common fairy turn of phrase, but Feyre's also like, maybe I can't kill him. Maybe his heart is actually stone. And she's like, in all those times that like I fell asleep on his shoulder and we've had all of our little like steamy moments, I've actually never heard his heart beat. Meanwhile, it is like dead quiet in this throne room while she's doing this like 4D mental chess with Amarantha, right? But something must have sparked on her face, and Tamlin can kind of tell that she's had a little epiphany, and he just kind of looks at her, tilts his chin up a little bit, and that's all the invitation she needs. "I love you," she said, and stabbed him in the heart. The ash dagger goes straight through, cracks bones, gushes blood, all the good stuff. And then it hits a rock hard heart. She was right. Tamlin's heart is stone, and she stabbed it like she needed to. The trial only said that she had to stab them in the heart. It didn't say that she had to kill them, technically. So, boom. She pulls out the dagger and is kind of letting Tamlin heal. But when she turns to Amarantha, the queen is like, "Yeah, I never said when I was going to free you. I said that if you broke the riddle, I would instantaneously end the curse, but I never said anything about like when I would free you after the trials." And then she just loses her shit. She is like, "I'm gonna kill you, Feyre. Do you think you deserve a high lord, you nasty human worm?" She then like uses her magic to pick Feyre up and is like tossing her around like a rag doll and stuff. It's not cute. Rhysand even tries to jump into the action to help or maybe kill Amarantha while she's distracted, and Amarantha throws him across the room into the wall. He blacks out, and Feyre is being so brutally injured that she keeps passing out from the pain, but then Amarantha uses the magic to keep her awake, so she's conscious for all of this. And Amarantha is like, "I'll stop if you say that you don't love Tamlin." For a split second, when Rhysand is thrown against the wall and kind of blacks out, Feyre like sees through his eyes. I guess their like weird connection, that tattoo, she can see herself on the ground from his vantage point. So that's a weird thing. Next, the queen makes Feyre mentally live through all of her worst memories, like a supercut. Tamlin is now awake and healed and screaming. He's begging Amarantha, like, I'll do anything, please just stop. But it's too far gone. Feyre can barely breathe because I'm pretty sure she broke all of her ribs or something like that. But even though Feyre's lungs aren't working, her brain is still going. Blood filled my mouth, warm as it dribbled out between my lips. I gazed at Tamlin's masked face one last time. Love, I breathed, the world crumbling into a blackness with no end, a pause in Amarantha's magic. The answer to the riddle I got out, choking on my own blood, is love. Tamlin's eyes went wide before something forever cracked in my spine. When Feyre can see again, it's not through her own eyes. She's looking at the scene from a different vantage point, and she can see herself on the ground, and her head is just at a wrong angle. Her neck has been broken. Amarantha is standing there looking shocked, not because Feyre died, because we're pretty sure that's what she wanted, but because Feyre broke the curse. Tamlin wastes no time. Rhysand, winding him up probably paid off, because within the blink of an eye, Tamlin crosses the room and bites out Amarantha's throat. Yeah, she's dead. Feyre takes attendance and she realizes that she's seeing out of Rhysand's eyes again. He is standing back, and so she can just kind of watch as, Tamlin and everybody run over to her. Tamlin is screaming, trying to pick her up, and But then something weird happens. All of the High Lords start to come up to her body and dropping like glitter on her or something, each and every one of them. When Rhysand finally steps forward, he says something along the lines of like, for what she did, we bestow the gift of our predecessors, and drops his little glitter bomb on her as well. And then Tamlin is the last one. He pets her very bloody head, whispers, I love you, and puts his last bit of glitter in her heart. Feyre is zapped out of Rhysand's head, and now she can see, but she is like in some kind of pool of darkness. She's sort of in limbo, and she can like look up from this dark tunnel and see the High Lords looking down at her, but it's very far away. But then she sees this little golden string, and it's tying her to the world. She uses that string to climb her way back up to her body. She wakes up surrounded by Fae, but something is strange. Number one, she's kind of glowing. Number two, she sits up really fast and is really strong. So yay, her neck isn't broken, but also like her body's acting kind of funny. She can smell better. She can see better. Oh no. Oh yes, Feyre is Fae, baby. It happened. So Tamlin stands behind her and explains that this was the only way to save her, to make her Fae, and she's not just Fae, she's high Fae, all right? She looks around, she starts to have a panic attack because she's surrounded by dead bodies. They didn't just kill Amarantha, they killed everybody else who was on Amarantha's side. She's also having a panic attack because she killed some of them. Two of those fairies, she stabbed them in the heart, and they were just innocent fairies. So she's having a rough time of it. But then fingers find her chin, and she's turned to face someone she's never fully seen before. Tamlin's mask is on the ground, and you guessed it, he looks exactly how she dreamed. He smiled at me, his entire face alight with that quiet joy I have come to love so dearly, and he brushed my hair aside. What I had done to get to this moment, to be standing here. In a minute, in an hour, in a day, I would think about that, force myself to face it. I put a hand on Tamlin's heart, and a steady beat echoed into my bones. So this should be our happily ever after moment, right? Well, as happy as Feyre is that she saved Tamlin and like the world, the weight of those two innocent Fae that she killed is like really heavy on her heart. Everyone just pretty much immediately like wants to get out of that under the mountain place. So everybody just kind of scatters to their respective homes, and she just kind of sits there like clearly really haunted by this. Tamlin tries to get her to talk about it, but she's just sort of like, later, Tamlin and Feyre finally get their moment alone together, and there is some good steam. This is what they worked for. This is what Feyre almost died for, right? So they're finally together. So she wakes up a little bit after that, and she like feels a little tug, like she's being pulled towards the balcony. Riri is out there, wings out, waiting for her. He's just like, I just wanted to say bye. I'll see you at the night court soon. Because remember, they still have that bargain. And she does actually try and thank him for helping with the second trial because she knew it was him, And he's basically like, I didn't want you to fight or die alone. And that really sticks with Feyre because remember, with that fairy that she comforted while it was dying, she really feels like that. She never wants to die alone. And he's like, so how is it being high fae, welcome to the club? And she's like, yeah, it's dope, but I wish we could have switched out my heart or something because I'm feeling way too many human emotions right now. Like fae, because they're immortal, they feel everything, but like maybe not as like those 2 little deaths in the grand scheme of things might not have been such a big deal, but to Feyre it's like she is shaken to her core. And Rhysand says, be glad of your human heart, Feyre. Pity those who don't feel anything at all. And then he gets ready to teleport or whatever, like peace out of here. And he turns around to be like, all right, see ya. And he just freezes. His eyes lock on mine, wide and wild, and his nostrils flared. Shock, pure shock splashed across his features at whatever he saw on my face. And he stumbled back a step. Actually stumbled. What is, Feyre began, but he disappeared into the crisp air. So Rhysand literally did a like... which, he's Mr. Suave. So Feyre's just like, okay. After that, Tamlin and Feyre make their way back to the spring court, and she realizes that she's never actually thought about what happens next. Now that they're all free, what do they do, She's still really broken by the killings, but she had tomorrow, because there would be a tomorrow and an eternity to face what I had done. To face what I shredded into pieces inside myself while under the mountain. But for now, for today, let's go home, I said, and took his hand. Baby! All right, that is A Court of Thorns and Roses. This book was about 400 something pages. The books continuously get longer. So I am working on the second one right now, but it's taken a lot out of me. So yeah, I hope that you enjoyed this. There are definitely going to be a lot more characters in the next books. I never actually noticed kind of how few recurring characters there were in this book, but because everyone was under the mountain with Amarantha, we really only had Tamlin and Lucian most of the time. So it's going to be quite different. It's going to be quite crowded with the next books. So thank you for being here with me, and I will see you guys next time. Let me know your thoughts down below, and see you for A Court of Mist and Fury, arguably most people's favorite book in the series. And once again, thank you to our sponsors, Squarespace, for sponsoring this video. If you would like, all the information is down below, but you can go to squarespace.com/caricanread to get 10% off of your first website or domain. I will see you guys next time.